Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab.
And welcome back. Today we're diving into something I think many of us wonder about. Can art actually, heal psychological wounds?
It's such an intriguing question, isn't it? I mean, humans have made art forever, but looking at it as a real tool for healing emotional pain, psychological distress, that's what we're exploring in this deep dive.
Right. We've looked into some material to see, if and how different kinds of art might help people recover. What does the evidence actually suggest?
Yeah, so we'll be touching on the psychology, maybe even a bit of the brain science.
Definitely. And some really moving stories, plus practical ways. You might even try some of this yourself.
Okay, let's get into it. Where does this healing potential even start? It feels like it must connect to what's happening in our brains, right?
Absolutely. And what's striking is how art isn't just like a mood booster. It directly engages the brain regions tied up with our emotions, our memories, how we process the world through our senses.
Yeah, so you mean places like the amygdala, that's the emotion center, kind of?
Yeah, that's heavily involved in emotional responses. And also the prefrontal cortex, which is more about higher level stuff like decision-making, reflecting on ourselves.
Okay.
And there's actual research showing that getting creative can have a measurable biological effect. It can lower stress hormones like cortisol.
Oh, wow. How much?
Well, some studies suggest by up to 25%, which is pretty significant. And that doesn't just feel good. It actually promotes relaxation and helps the brain become more flexible, neuroplasticity.
Which is key for healing trauma, right?
Yeah.
That ability to change.
Exactly. It's vital. Plus, creative activities stimulate something called the default mode network, the DMN.
Okay, what's that?
It's linked to introspection, like thinking about ourselves, mind wandering, and things like drawing or sculpting. They let you process difficult feelings without words in a safe way.
Ah, so it gets around the need to articulate something really painful.
Precisely. It can lessen the emotional punch of tough memories. It's like combining verbal and nonverbal processing to integrate the experience. Sometimes that's called dual representation.
I can imagine the physical act itself must be quite grounding, too.
It really is, especially tactile arts, working with clay, knitting, that sort of thing. It engages your senses, your motor skills.
Pulls you into the now.
Yeah, it anchors you in the present. That helps with mindfulness and cuts down on that endless loop of negative thoughts, rumination or anxiety about the past or future.
And there's solid evidence for this neurologically.
Yes, a big analysis of studies confirmed that these art-based approaches genuinely improve connections in the brain areas linked to regulating our emotions. So it's not just a feeling, there's a physical basis.
That's fascinating. And this isn't always just about picking up a paintbrush on your own, is it? There's a formal approach. Art therapy.
Right. Art therapy, that's a recognized field. It basically combines psychotherapy principles with creative expression, but it's guided by a trained therapist.
So using things like drawing, painting, sculpture.
Exactly. To help people explore thoughts and feelings that might be subconscious or just too difficult, too painful to talk about directly.
It's like offering a different kind of language.
It really is. And that nonverbal element is key. The space is meant to be completely non-judgmental.
Which must be so important.
Hugely. Especially for trauma. There was a study with veterans, for instance, that showed art therapy significantly cut down PTSD symptoms by about 30% over time.
30%? Wow.
Yeah. And it helped improve their emotional control. This idea of having a safe expression space is critical when you're dealing with really tough stuff.
You mentioned something about the artwork itself becoming a sort of bridge.
Yes, the concept of a transitional object. The artwork, the thing you create, can become this tangible thing that connects your conscious thoughts with deeper, maybe unconscious feelings or experiences. It makes the internal more external, more manageable.
I can see how that would help with something like depression, where words feel impossible sometimes.
Definitely. And studies bear that out too. One found art therapy helped improve depressive symptoms for a big chunk of participants, like 65%, and the effects were comparable to other kinds of therapy.
Okay, so that's formal therapy. But what about just creating stuff on your own?
Yeah.
Is there a similar release?
Oh, for sure. That brings us to ideas like emotional catharsis and sublimation.
Sublimation. That's Freud, right? Channeling difficult feelings into something else.
Exactly. Redirecting those difficult impulses or energies into something acceptable, like art. And catharsis is that feeling of release, letting go of pent-up emotions through the creative act itself.
Like if you're furious, maybe painting something really chaotic and angry.
Precisely. It gets it out of you, externalizes it. That can really diffuse its power. Carl Jung also talked about art's role in integrating the conscious and unconscious. Think of creating mandalas. That focused drawing can help reconcile inner conflicts, bring a sense of wholeness.
And this doesn't just happen in big dramatic art pieces.
Not at all. It happens in everyday creativity, too. Things like journaling, writing poetry.
Expressive writing?
Yeah. Research shows that expressive writing can lessen anxiety and depression symptoms because it helps you process what you're feeling. Art, in its many forms, can become this safe space for your inner world.
Okay, this is where it gets really powerful, I think, hearing how this actually plays out for real people. The material had some amazing stories. Let's talk about Maria and her mural.
Maria's story is incredibly powerful. She had survived domestic abuse and was involved with a community center on Chicago's South Side. You can almost picture it, the smell of paint, neighborhood sounds.
And she'd found talking therapies really difficult.
Yeah, intensely difficult. Verbalizing the trauma was just too much, but painting, that was different. It became this breakthrough for her. She started working on this huge mural.
And the mural itself became this visual story of her journey, using colors to show the anger, the sorrow, but also hope.
Exactly. Putting it out there visually like that let her process it without being completely overwhelmed. And assessments actually confirmed she had a significant drop in PTSD symptoms. It really backs up that idea of processing fragmented memories visually. And doing it in a community space, that helped her feel less isolated, more connected.
That sense of belonging must be huge. Then there was Jamal, using poetry for grief.
Right, Jamal. A young guy in Harlem dealing with the incredibly painful loss of his mother. For him, formal therapy just wasn't an option financially.
So writing became his outlet.
It became his lifeline, yeah. Pouring all that grief and confusion into poems. He wrote about storms, about light fading. It helped him structure those overwhelming feelings.
And he started sharing it.
He did. First at open mic nights, then he joined a community writing workshop. That act of writing and sharing being heard, that created connection. He reported feeling less depressed, and his story really shows how expressive writing helps and how community connection is part of healing too.
And David, the veteran using sculpture, that sounds very different again.
Very tactile. This was in a VA hospital courtyard, San Diego maybe. Imagine the smell of clay, maybe flowers nearby. David had PTSD, and talk therapy often triggered flashbacks for him.
But working with clay was grounding.
Exactly. The physical act of shaping the clay anchored him in the present moment. It helped reduce the anxiety, the flashbacks.
And he made a specific sculpture.
He made one symbolizing protection. And through making it, he found he could actually voice something he deeply wanted to reconnect with his daughter.
That's amazing.
And clinically, his PTSD symptoms decreased. It lines up with research on how tactile arts help with mindfulness and reduce that feeling of being constantly on edge, that hyper-arousal. The whole garden became a collective healing space, too.
Then Amina, the refugee using photography. That's about reclaiming narrative, isn't it?
Very much so. Amina, a Syrian refugee in a camp near Athens. She'd lost so much, felt like her identity was gone. A workshop gave her a camera.
And that changed things.
It became her tool, documenting her life, her journey, finding moments of beauty, even in really difficult circumstances. Choosing what to photograph gave her back a sense of control, of agency.
Telling her own story.
Right. And her photos helped her process things, but they also built community in the camp and even got attention from aid workers. She felt less anxious, more empowered. It really matches studies on using photography to boost self-efficacy in refugees.
And there was Hana, the young autistic girl using music.
Yes, in a classroom in Tokyo, Hana found verbal communication really hard. But music therapy, especially drumming, that gave her a way to express emotions non-verbally.
Through rhythm and sound?
Exactly, finding a different kind of language. And it helped her socially, too. Her parents and therapists saw more eye contact, better emotional regulation. Drumming even helped her connect with other kids. Music therapy can be incredibly powerful, especially for neurodiverse kids.
And finally, Eleanor, using watercolors with dementia.
In a care home in London, Eleanor had early-stage dementia. Painting with watercolors sometimes sparked these moments of real clarity for her.
The act of painting anchored her.
It seemed to. And the colors, the process, it would trigger memories, maybe from her childhood, that she could then share.
Creating connection.
Precious moments of connection with staff, with family. They noticed she was more engaged, less agitated. And research does support art therapy for improving well-being and even some cognitive function in dementia patients. The paintings gave her pride and gave others a window into her world.
These stories are just incredible. They really bring those mechanisms of healing to life. Maybe we can quickly recap those core ways art helps.
Sure. So first, there's self-expression and, importantly, identity reconstruction. Trauma or mental illness can really shatter your sense of self. Art lets you explore that, express it, and start rebuilding or redefining your own story.
Like drawing mandalas helping with integration.
Exactly. And just making choices in your art colors. Subjects that restores a sense of agency, which is huge if you've felt powerless. You're rewriting your narrative in a way.
And connection, that came up in almost every story.
Definitely. Social connection and community. Art directly fights the isolation that often comes with psychological wounds. Things like community murals, choirs, they build shared experience, trust, belonging. Studies show group art reduces loneliness and improves social skills.
That choir example with heart rates synchronizing, that's wild.
It really shows that deep connection. Art is a powerful social glue.
And mindfulness, you mentioned that earlier too, getting lost in the process.
Yes, mindfulness and flow states. That feeling of being completely absorbed in creating something where time just disappears, that's flow, it pulls you into the present, stops the rumination.
Even simple things.
Yeah, even repetitive things like knitting or doodling can induce a meditative state. Research confirms art boosts mindfulness.
And lastly, the power of symbols.
Crucial. Symbolic processing and metaphor. Art lets you explore really big, scary feelings indirectly. A storm for turmoil, a bird for vulnerability, sunshine for hope. You know?
It makes it safer to approach.
Exactly. It creates a bit of distance from the raw emotion, making it more manageable to look at and understand. It helps access subconscious stuff safely.
This all feels intuitive, but it's not entirely new, is it? People have used art therapeutically for ages.
Oh, absolutely. Its roots are ancient think rituals, cave paintings maybe. Then early psychologists in the 20th century started cottoning onto its power for accessing the unconscious.
And then it became more formal, like a profession.
Yeah, in the 1940s, pioneers like Margaret Naumburg really formalized art therapy, blending psychoanalysis with art making. Edith Kramer also emphasized the healing power inherent in the creative process itself.
And it really proved its worth after major crises like World War II.
Massively. Helping Holocaust survivors, returning soldiers process unimaginable trauma. Those early programs showed real results, symptom reduction. Now it's recognized globally, with professional bodies pushing for it to be integrated more into healthcare.
But despite all this potential, it's not always easy, right? There must be challenges.
For sure, it's not a magic bullet. Access is a huge one. Cost, finding trained therapists, just the stigma around mental health, especially in communities that don't have many resources.
Yeah, I read somewhere that not that many facilities actually offer it.
Right. And also some people just feel intimidated, like, I'm not artistic or I can't draw.
That feeling must stop a lot of people.
It does. Or sometimes if symptoms are really severe, deep depression, dissociation, it can just be incredibly hard to even start to engage creatively.
Is there a risk if it's not guided properly? Could it make things worse?
There's a potential risk, yeah. If someone's dealing with intense, unprocessed trauma, just diving into creative expression without support could trigger overwhelming distress. Having a trained professional there helps navigate that safely.
And culture must matter hugely.
Yeah.
What works in one place might not work elsewhere.
Absolutely critical. Cultural sensitivity is key. You can't just impose a Western model everywhere. Traditional indigenous storytelling, specific crafts, community singing, these might be far more resonant and effective depending on the person's background.
Okay, so there are challenges. But putting those aside for a moment, it seems like there are loads of ways individuals can bring art into their lives for well-being, even without formal therapy.
Oh, definitely. You don't need to be a great artist or see a therapist. Simple things can make a real difference day to day.
Like just writing things down?
Yeah, journaling, expressive writing, gratitude lists, even just doodling your thoughts. Studies show it helps with stress and mood.
Or joining a group.
Totally. Community art groups, choirs, local craft circles, they offer that creative outlet, plus the social connection, which we know is so important, often low cost or free too.
And those simple mindful things, like coloring.
Exactly. Adult coloring books became popular for a reason. Knitting, drawing patterns, those repetitive mindful activities really can calm the nervous system, reduce anxiety. Research backs this up.
What about tech? Can digital tools help?
For sure. Digital art, music creation apps, writing tools on your phone or tablet, they make creativity really accessible, low barrier to entry for many people.
This feels like something bigger too, like it should be part of health policy.
There's definitely a case for it. Integrating arts into healthcare settings, schools, community programs, it could be a really effective public health approach. Some analyses suggest arts interventions can be quite cost-effective for improving well-being across populations.
So, wrapping this all up, this deep dive really hammers home that art is, well, a genuinely powerful tool for healing psychological wounds.
It really is compelling. It works physically in the brain, it bypasses blocks in communication, it helps rebuild identity, fosters connection, promotes mindfulness, and we see it work in those real-life stories.
From Maria's mural to Jamal's poetry, David's sculpture, Amina's photos, Hannah's music, Eleanor's watercolors, it just shows the incredible range of art's power across so many different situations and challenges.
Yeah, and while we have to acknowledge the challenges access, cultural fit, the fundamental potential of art to, mend the psyche seems undeniable. It's way more than just decoration or entertainment.
It definitely makes you think about art's deep role in our resilience as humans. Maybe its healing power is hiding in plain sight, in places we don't always expect. How could you, personally, tap into a bit of that? If you found this deep dive useful or interesting, please do like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Get ready for, well, a really delightful culinary trip around the world today. We're going to be delving into the scrumptious and deeply meaningful food customs you find at various festivals.
It really is remarkable, isn't it? How food during celebrations, it's just so much more than mere sustenance. It truly acts as this powerful connector, sharing stories, history, and that essential feeling of belonging.
Absolutely. And our aim today is to really explore the vital role food plays in these cultural festivities. We're going to look at some specific examples and try to understand why these traditions are so significant. We'll see how food shapes communities, keeps heritage vibrant, and even reveals what different societies truly value. Okay, let's maybe unpack this. What's the first thing that jumps out?
Well, what's fascinating, I think, is just how universal the significance of food is in these contexts. It functions almost like a cultural code, you could say, a way of conveying pretty profound meaning within a community.
That's a really interesting way to put it. When you think about it, the actual act of preparing and sharing specific foods during festivals, that naturally links generations, doesn't it? It sort of solidifies that cultural identity through these shared culinary experiences.
Indeed. And festivals, they often signify times of abundance, right? So the shared food beautifully symbolizes prosperity and gratitude. It's a chance to kind of showcase a community's bounty and, collectively express thankfulness.
And it seems there's often more to it than just, well, filling bellies. There often seem to be these really profound spiritual and symbolic meanings woven into the festival foods, even the ingredients themselves. Things like representing fertility or wealth or even unity come to mind.
Precisely. Yeah, think about how certain ingredients might be deeply connected to the local land or hold some kind of historical importance. And then you have the act of communal eating itself, which can represent harmony and togetherness, that sort of thing.
And we shouldn't overlook the sensory experience. I mean, the taste, the smell, the texture of these foods, it all just amplifies the emotional impact of the festivals, makes them even more memorable and meaningful for everyone involved. So where should our global culinary tour begin?
Let's start our journey in India for Diwali, the Festival of Lights, and we can focus maybe on the dynamic celebrations in Varanasi.
Diwali, yes. A truly spectacular festival, celebrating light over darkness and often tied to the return of Lord Rama. And like we were saying, food is just so central.
Oh, without a doubt. During Diwali, sweets and snacks, they really embody sweetness in life, prosperity, the sharing of joy. And in Varanasi, you'll find some truly distinctive and significant dishes.
Like laddu. Those round sweet things, right? What's their story?
Laddu, yeah. Often made from gram flour, sugar, and ghee, they're a classic Diwali treat. Their round shape is often seen as symbolizing completeness, prosperity. And in Varanasi, there's a famous place, Kshir Sagar, that's particularly known for their motikur laddu. It's a really delicate version.
Sounds amazing. And then there's kaju kadli, those elegant diamond-shaped sweets.
Right, made from cashews and sugar. Those are often exchanged during Diwali. It's like a token of affection, of goodwill between people.
And for something savory, there's chakli.
Exactly. Those spiral-shaped snacks made from rice flour and spices, fried until they're nice and crisp. Sharing chakli among neighbors, that really emphasizes those vital community bonds,
It sounds like preparing all this food must be quite an undertaking.
It often involves the whole family, absolutely, with cherished recipes passed down through generations. And in Varanasi, the practice of offering these sweets to neighbors to temples, that's a really significant gesture of goodwill. It reinforces those social connections.
Yeah, I've heard it said that these Diwali sweets aren't just treats. They're actually seen as offerings to deities, like Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth.
That's a crucial point, and it's also interesting to see the regional variations. While milk-based sweets are common in North India, like in Varanasi, you'll find different specialties down south, things like murukku and atirasam.
Okay, so next stop on this culinary festival tour takes us over to the United States for Thanksgiving. Let's focus on Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Right. Thanksgiving, as you know, it's a holiday deeply rooted in gratitude and communal feasting. Its origins go back to that 1621 meal shared between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people right there in Plymouth.
And today it's this huge national holiday where families gather for a big meal, giving thanks for their blessings. Plymouth, being the site of that original Thanksgiving, must have some powerful traditions.
It definitely does. The modern Thanksgiving meal, it really revolves around several key dishes. The roast turkey, often stuffed, is the undisputed centerpiece. And in Plymouth, places like the Plymouth Patuxent Museums, they try to present historically inspired turkey preparations based on, 17th century recipes.
Of course, you absolutely need cranberry sauce.
That tangy condiment made from native cranberries, it symbolizes the harvest and gives a nice sharpness against the richness of the turkey.
And for dessert, it has to be pumpkin pie.
Exactly. A spiced dessert with pumpkin. It's a clear nod to the fall harvest and just a really beloved Thanksgiving tradition.
So the emphasis here is clearly on abundance and gratitude, with the meal itself acting as a symbol of unity.
Absolutely. It's been described as this ritual where family members, sometimes leading very different lives, come together to kind of affirm their connections through sharing food. And in Plymouth, that historical side is very much alive. You've got events like the America's Hometown Thanksgiving Parade showcasing local culinary heritage, too.
It's interesting how immigrant communities have also added their own flavors to the Thanksgiving table over the years.
Totally. You might find tamales or fried rice or even baklava alongside the turkey and stuffing now. It really shows how these culinary traditions can adapt and evolve. Okay, so our next stop is China for the Lunar New Year, and let's focus on Beijing.
The Lunar New Year. Wow, such a huge celebration, marking the start of the new lunar year. It's all about family reunions, honoring ancestors, welcoming prosperity, and again, food seems to be right at the heart of it.
It really is. The dishes served are often chosen very carefully for their symbolic meanings, their auspicious qualities, and Beijing, being the capital, is just this vibrant hub for all the festivities.
Let's talk about those iconic dumplings, Jiaozi.
Ah, yes, jiaozi. These crescent-shaped dumplings, usually filled with things like pork, shrimp, or vegetables, they symbolize wealth because they look a bit like ancient Chinese gold ingots. In Beijing, it's a really cherished tradition for the whole family to gather on New Year's Eve to make them and eat them together. It's believed to bring good fortune. It's fascinating, isn't it? How something as simple as the shape of a dumpling can carry such deep cultural meaning, reminding families of their shared history and hopes for prosperity year after year.
And mian gao, the sticky rice cake. What's the symbolism there?
Yes, nian gao. Its name literally means year cake, and it symbolizes growth and prosperity, like reaching new heights each year. You'll see street vendors all over Beijing's hutongs selling it fried or steamed, often with a sweet red bean filling. It's delicious.
And I gather fish is also a really essential part of the celebration.
That's right. A whole steamed fish called yu is served to symbolize abundance. Mainly because the Chinese word for fish, yu, sounds very similar to the word for surplus or plenty. You can find some incredibly elaborate fish dishes in restaurants like Haidilao in Beijing during this time.
It sounds like every single step, from the prep to actually eating it, is just loaded with symbolism.
Pretty much. The collective effort of making dumplings, that strengthens family unity. Eating yin gao is seen as a way to ensure progress in the coming year. Food scholars have pointed out that foods are often chosen specifically because their names sound like words associated with luck and prosperity. It's all about those phonetic links.
And the Temple Fair at Deaton Park in Beijing sounds like an amazing place to just dive into the food culture.
Oh, it is. You'll find all sorts of traditional snacks there, like tengkulu, those amazing candied hawthorn skewers, and baozi, the steamed buns. They really add to that lively, festive atmosphere. Okay, our next culinary destination takes us to the Muslim world for Eid al-Fitr, and we'll focus on Cairo, Egypt. So moving from the, vibrant sweetness of Diwali, let's head to a festival that marks the end of a really significant period of reflection and renewal.
Eid al-Fitr, right? The festival of breaking the fast, marking the end of Ramadan. Gosh, after a whole month of daytime fasting, food must take on a particularly special significance.
It absolutely does. It's a time of huge gratitude, forgiveness, and of course, communal feasting. In Cairo, the street markets just come alive and families gather to share meals together.
What are some of the key foods you'd find in Cairo during Eid?
Well, kak are absolutely essential. These are buttery cookies, often dusted with powdered sugar, sometimes filled with dates or nuts. They are so synonymous with Eid in Egypt that bakeries, like the famous El Abd, get incredibly busy just churning them out.
They sound lovely. What else is typically enjoyed?
Fateh is a really hearty staple. It's a layered dish. You've got flatbread, rice, meat, all topped with this fragrant garlicky yogurt sauce. It's very substantial. And for a sweet treat, there's kataif, which are these delicate little stuffed pancakes soaked in syrup. Also very popular.
It sounds like a proper feast. Is there also a community aspect to the food preparation, like the dumplings for Lunar New Year?
Definitely. Families and neighbors often work together to bake the kak and prepare other big dishes. It's been noted that these Eid feasts symbolize a kind of return to balance after the austerity of Ramadan, both physically and spiritually. And sharing food with those less fortunate is a really central part of the tradition, too.
And I imagine bustling markets like Khan El Khalili are just central to all the Eid preparations, getting ingredients and treats.
They are, yes. You'll find vendors selling all the necessary ingredients, plus beautifully prepared sweets. There's a real buzz, a sense of anticipation in the air. All right, our final stop on this global food festival tour is Germany for Oktoberfest, and we're heading to Munich.
Oktoberfest, the world's biggest beer festival. But it's not just about the beer, is it? Food clearly plays a massive role, too.
Absolutely. While the beer is, obviously a huge draw, the hearty Bavarian cuisine is just as integral to celebrating Bavarian culture. It all started back in 1810, actually, as a royal wedding celebration, and it's just grown into this massive global event held every year in Munich.
And where does all this festive eating and drinking happen?
It takes place on the Theresienwiese Fairgrounds in Munich, inside these enormous traditional beer tents. And you'll find some classic Bavarian dishes there.
Like those massive pretzels, the Briesen.
Exactly. Big, soft pretzels with that signature chewy inside and crisp, salty crust. They are the quintessential Oktoberfest snack, perfect with a stein of beer.
And what about Weisswurst? Tell us about that.
Weisswurst. It's a mild white sausage made from veal and pork. Traditionally, you eat with sweet mustard and naturally a Briesen, usually before noon, actually.
And I've definitely heard about the roasted chicken, Hendel.
Yes, wonderfully crispy skin, really juicy inside. It's a real staple in the Oktoberfest tents, often served simply with maybe some potato salad or sauerkraut.
It sounds like the food really reflects Bavaria's agricultural roots and a sort of generous approach to eating.
It really does. The culinary traditions emphasize abundance, conviviality. You get these big portions meant for sharing around the table, whether you're with old friends or people you just met. Famous tents like Schottenhamel or Hackerpschor are particularly known for their food, creating that lively, communal atmosphere.
And the food is also specifically designed to go well with all that famous Oktoberfest beer, right?
Spot on. The hearty, often slightly salty dishes, they pair perfectly with the malty flavors of the festival beers. It really enhances that whole feeling of Gemütlichkeit, that camaraderie.
It's really remarkable to see how, even though these festivals come from such different parts of the world, there are some genuinely universal themes when it comes to the food.
Indeed. Think about the sharing of sweets, like in Diwali and Eid, that's strong emphasis on generosity, community. Or the big communal feasts of Thanksgiving and Lunar New Year, highlighting the importance of family and gratitude.
And these food traditions, they aren't just stuck in their places of origin anymore, are they?
Not at all. Cultural exchange, especially through diaspora communities, means these culinary traditions are adapting in new places all over the globe. You might see really creative fusion Diwali dishes now, or Lunar New Year feasts using local ingredients in, say, London or New York.
And the festivals themselves become a chance for people to experience new cuisines directly.
Absolutely. Tourists flock to Oktoberfest or to Diwali celebrations in places like Varanasi, partly to try the authentic local dishes, and that in turn helps spread these culinary traditions even further.
Beyond just the cultural side of things, these festival foods must have a pretty big social and economic impact too.
Oh, they certainly do. Socially, the act of preparing and sharing food, it strengthens community bonds, like we've said. It's a time for collective cooking, passing down recipes, preserving that culinary heritage.
And economically speaking,
Well, festivals create huge demand for specific ingredients and dishes. That boosts local economy significantly. Think about all the cake production in Cairo during Eid, or the massive revenue from food and drink at Oktoberfest in Munich.
but there can be challenges that come with this commercialization, I suppose.
Yes, that's true. Mass production can sometimes lead to maybe a dilution of the really traditional recipes, and rising ingredient costs can make it harder for some people to fully participate in these culinary traditions. We've even seen that with things like ghee and nut prices impacting how Diwali sweets are made in India sometimes.
It's really interesting to think about how these traditions are adapting to the modern world.
It is. There's definitely a concern sometimes about losing traditional knowledge, as younger generations might opt for convenience. But then you also see really positive initiatives trying to preserve these skills, like dumpling making workshops in Beijing, for example.
And what about changing dietary preferences? Things like vegetarianism, veganism.
Yeah.
Are we seeing festival foods adapt?
We are, absolutely. You're seeing vegan Diwali sweets becoming more available. Plant-based alternatives showing up at Thanksgiving are getting pretty popular, too. It shows these traditions can be flexible.
Technology must be playing a part in these shifts as well.
For sure. Online platforms make it easy to share recipes across the globe. And food delivery services, well, they're even bringing festive dishes right to people's doorsteps. Think about Eid cake delivery apps popping up in Cairo.
And what about sustainability? That seems to be a growing concern everywhere.
It's becoming increasingly important, yes. Festivals often involve huge amounts of food, so there's more focus now on eco-friendly practices, things like using locally sourced ingredients where possible, reducing food waste, maybe using biodegradable plates like they do at Oktoberfest now. It's definitely part of the conversation.
Wow. So from the incredible sweet treats of Diwali to the really hearty and comforting food of Oktoberfest, it's just so clear that the foods we find at festivals are so much more than just fuel. They are truly vibrant expressions of culture, of history, and that enduring spirit of community.
We've definitely seen how these rich culinary traditions connect us to the past, how they strengthen our bonds with each other right now, and how they even evolve in really fascinating ways as the world keeps changing.
Makes you think, doesn't it? About the festivals you've experienced yourself. What specific foods really stick in your memory? What do those foods tell you about the celebration, about the people sharing it?
We really hope you continue exploring the amazing, diverse world of festival foods and all the captivating stories they hold. There's so much more out there.
And if you enjoy this deep dive into global food traditions, please do like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more engaging content like this.
Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today, we're diving into, a really fascinating question. Can you actually train your brain to be happier?
It's a great question.
Yeah, because, happiness often feels like something that just happens or doesn't happen. Depends on your day, right?
Exactly. It feels external, dependent on circumstances. But the science is actually pretty encouraging. It suggests we have quite a bit more influence than we might think.
More influence. Okay, I like the sound of that. So we're not just stuck with however happy or unhappy we happen to feel.
Not at all. Happiness isn't just random chance. It's a complex interplay happening inside your brain. And the really amazing part is our brains aren't static. They're not set in stone.
Right, I've heard about that. Neuroplasticity.
Precisely. Neuroplasticity. It's the brain's incredible ability to change and adapt, to form new connections based on our experiences, our thoughts, even our actions. Think of it like carving new paths in your mind.
Okay, so let's dig into that, the science bit. If we want to train our brains, what do we need to understand about how happiness actually works up there?
Well, fundamentally, it involves brain activity and, crucially, these chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. You probably heard of some of them.
Like dopamine.
Yep, dopamine's a big one. That's your reward chemical. You get a hit when you achieve a goal or even just anticipate achieving one.
Okay. What else?
Then there's serotonin, which is really important for mood stability, kind of an overall sense of well-being. Oxytocin, that's key for social connection, trust, bonding.
Right, the love hormone or something.
Sort of, yeah. And endorphins, they're natural painkillers, but also give you that euphoric feeling like after a good run.
So these chemicals are swirling around, influencing how we feel, and the idea is we can nudge them.
That's the core idea, yes.
Yeah.
Our behaviors and our thoughts can directly influence the release and balance of these neurotransmitters. And because of neuroplasticity, these changes aren't just fleeting. They can actually reshape our neural pathways over time.
Wow. Can you give an example of research showing this?
Sure. The work of Dr. Richard Davison is really significant here. He's a neuroscientist who's done a lot with meditation and mindfulness.
What did he find?
His research showed that practices like mindfulness meditation can actually increase activity in the left prefrontal cortex.
And that's a good thing.
Yes, that area is strongly linked with positive emotions, resilience, well-being. His studies even showed measurable physical changes in brain structure in people who underwent mindfulness training. It's like building muscle, but in your brain.
That's incredible. It's not just feeling better, it's being better structurally. Okay, let's go back to those neurotransmitters. How can we, encourage the helpful ones?
Okay, so dopamine achieve goals. Even small ones count. Finishing a task, learning something new. Novelty seeking also boosts it.
Trying new things makes sense. What about serotonin?
Serotonin levels seem to benefit from things like getting regular sunlight exposure and practices like gratitude journaling, actively focusing on what you're thankful for.
We'll come back to gratitude later, I bet. Oxytocin.
That's all about connection. Hugs, acts of kindness, quality time with people you care about, even petting an animal can trigger oxytocin release.
And endorphins, exercise, right?
Exercise is a big one. Laughter works too. Even eating spicy food can trigger a mild endorphin release for some people.
Haha. Okay, good to know. So lots of ways to potentially boost these, but I've also read that our brains have this bias towards negativity. Why is that?
The negativity bias. Yes, that's a real thing. It's an evolutionary hangover, basically. Our ancestors needed to be hyper-aware of threats to survive, that rustle in the bushes could be a predator.
So better safe than sorry.
Exactly. That wiring helped keep us alive, but today it means we often pay more attention to negative events, remember insults more than compliments, and generally focus on what could go wrong.
Which doesn't sound like a recipe for happiness. Can we fight that bias?
We can. Techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, are very effective here. CBT helps you become aware of those automatic negative thoughts.
Like assuming the worst.
Precisely. You learn to identify them, question their validity, and then consciously reframe them, look for alternative, more balanced or positive interpretations. It's about challenging that automatic negative filter.
Okay, retraining the thought patterns. Now, something else I came across was epigenetics. That sounds complicated. How does it fit in?
It sounds complex, but the basic idea is fascinating. Epigenetics is about how our behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way our genes work. It's not changing your DNA sequence, but changing how your body reads that sequence.
So my lifestyle can affect my genes.
In a way, yes. It could influence gene expression, whether certain genes are turned on or off. So while you might have a genetic predisposition towards, say, lower serotonin levels, your choices, diet, exercise, stress management, mindfulness, might actually influence how those genes are expressed.
We have some control over our genetic destiny, mood-wise.
That's the implication, yes. Mindfulness, for example, might enhance the expression of genes involved in serotonin pathways. It adds another layer to how much influence we potentially have.
Wow, okay. And one more biological link, the gut. I hear a lot about the gut-brain connection.
Yes, the gut-brain axis. It's a huge area of research now. There's constant communication happening between your brain and your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive system.
How does that affect happiness?
Well, a significant portion of your body's serotonin is actually produced in the gut. So the health and diversity of your gut bacteria can influence your mood, anxiety levels, everything. A healthy gut, often supported by things like fiber and fermented foods, seems to contribute to better mental well-being.
It really shows how interconnected everything is: mind, body, even bacteria. Okay, this scientific foundation is really helpful. Let's shift gears now to the practical side. Based on all this, what are some concrete strategies people can actually use to start training their brains for more happiness?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful strategies is mindfulness and meditation.
We mentioned Dr. Davidson's work earlier, so how does it work in practice?
Mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment, on purpose, without judgment. So much of our unhappiness comes from worrying about the future or ruminating on the past. Mindfulness helps anchor you in the now.
Reducing that mental chatter.
Exactly. And meditation is a formal way to practice that skill. As we said, it can literally change your brain, increasing activity in those positive emotion centers. It builds your mental muscle for focus and calm.
Do you have an example of this in action?
Sure. Think about Sarah. She went to Olympic National Park, this incredibly beautiful place, but she was just overwhelmed by anxiety, couldn't enjoy it.
Right.
So she started practicing mindfulness, focusing on her breath, noticing the details around her, the sound of the wind, the smell of the pine needles, the feeling of the ground beneath her feet, just bringing herself back to the present moment whenever her anxious thoughts started spiraling.
And it helped.
It did. It didn't magically erase the anxiety, but it gave her moments of peace, moments where she could actually appreciate the beauty around her. It helped her manage the anxiety instead of being consumed by it.
That makes sense. So for someone listening who wants to try this, what are the first steps?
Start small. Find a quiet spot, maybe just for 5 minutes a day. Sit comfortably. You can close your eyes or keep a soft gaze.
Okay.
Then just bring your attention to your breath. Notice the feeling of the air coming in and going out. Your mind will wander. That's totally normal.
Happens to everyone.
Everyone. The practice isn't about having a perfectly clear mind. It's about noticing when your mind has wandered and gently, without judging yourself, bringing your focus back to your breath.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Like training a puppy.
Exactly like training a puppy. Patience and gentle redirection. There are also loads of great guided meditation apps, Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer that could be really helpful, especially when you're starting out.
Good tips. Okay, another strategy you mentioned earlier, gratitude. How does being thankful boost happiness?
Gratitude is incredibly powerful because it directly counteracts that negativity bias we talked about. It forces your brain to scan for the good things, the things you appreciate, rather than just focusing on problems or what's missing.
Shifting the focus.
Precisely. And studies consistently show that people who regularly practice gratitude report higher levels of positive emotions, optimism, and overall life satisfaction. It literally retrains your brain to see the good.
You mentioned Miguel in the Sonoran Desert using this.
Yes, Miguel. He was going through a really tough time after a divorce, feeling pretty down. His daughter suggested he try keeping a gratitude journal.
Was he skeptical?
Very. But he started doing it, just writing down a few small things each day. Maybe the warmth of the sun, a good cup of coffee, a kind word from someone.
Simple things.
Very simple things. But over time, he noticed a shift. This daily practice forced him to actively look for and acknowledge the positives, however small. It gradually changed his perspective, helped him see that even amidst the difficulty, there was still good in his life. It brought back a sense of hope and, yes, happiness.
That's a great story. So how can people start a gratitude practice? What are the practical steps?
There are lots of ways. A classic is the gratitude journal. Just take a few minutes each day, maybe before bed, to write down 3-5 things you're grateful for.
Does it matter what they are?
Not really, big or small. The key is to be specific. Instead of just my family, maybe the way my partner made me laugh today.
Yeah.
Really feel the gratitude as you write.
Okay, specificity helps.
It does. You could also use an app or voice notes. Some people just take a moment to mentally list things. Reviewing your list weekly can also be powerful. And actually telling someone you're grateful for them, that amplifies the effect for both of you.
Sharing the gratitude. Nice. Okay, next strategy. Physical exercise. We know it's good for the body, but remind us how it trains the brain for happiness.
Right. Exercise is a fantastic mood booster. We mentioned endorphins, those feel-good chemicals. But exercise also impacts dopamine and serotonin, those other key neurotransmitters for mood and motivation.
So it's hitting multiple systems.
Exactly. Plus, regular activity helps reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. And there's even evidence it promotes neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells, particularly in the hippocampus, which is important for mood regulation and memory.
Wow, growing new brain cells. There was an example from Cape Town.
Yes, Aisha. She was a nurse experiencing severe burnout, really struggling. She decided to take up running, joined a local group.
Was it hard at first?
Definitely. But she stuck with it, and she noticed a real difference, not just physically, but mentally. Her mood improved, she had more energy, she felt better equipped to handle the stress of her job. For her, running became a crucial tool for managing burnout and boosting her overall happiness.
So finding an activity you can stick with seems key. What are some tips for getting started with exercise for mood?
Start small, definitely. Don't try to run a marathon tomorrow. Choose something you actually enjoy or at least don't hate. Walking, dancing, swimming, cycling, gardening, whatever gets you moving.
Make it fun.
If you can. Set realistic goals. Consistency is more important than intensity, especially at first. Exercising with a friend can help with motivation and adds a social element. And track your progress. Seeing how far you've come can be really rewarding.
Good advice. Okay, That social element brings us to the next strategy. Social connections. Why are relationships so vital for happiness?
Humans are fundamentally social beings. We're wired for connection. Strong, positive relationships are one of the biggest predictors of long-term happiness and well-being.
Why is that biologically?
A lot of it comes back to oxytocin. Meaningful social interactions, feeling understood, supported, part of a group trigger oxytocin release, which lowers stress, builds trust, and just makes us feel good. Isolation, on the other hand, can be really detrimental to both mental and physical health.
You had an example from rural China.
Yes, Lei.
Yeah.
After his wife passed away, he became very isolated and lonely. It was taking a huge toll. But then he started making an effort to participate more in his local community, going to gatherings, sharing meals, talking with neighbors.
Reaching out.
Exactly. Rebuilding those connections. And it made a huge difference. He found a sense of belonging again, companionship. It really lifted his spirits and eased the loneliness. It highlights how crucial that community feeling is.
It really does. So how can we actively cultivate stronger social connections in our busy lives?
Be intentional about it. Reach out regularly, texts, calls, emails. Don't just wait for others. Join groups or clubs based on your interests, hobbies, volunteering, sports. It's a great way to meet like-minded people.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah. And when you're with people, practice active listening. Put your phone away. Show genuine interest. Ask questions. Small gestures matter too. Invite someone for coffee. Host a simple get-together. And use technology thoughtfully to maintain connections with people who are far away.
Great points. The final key strategy you mentioned was purpose and meaning. How does having a sense of purpose impact our happiness?
Having a purpose, feeling like your life has meaning and direction, is deeply fulfilling. It activates those dopamine reward pathways in the brain, similar to achieving goals. When you feel like what you're doing matters, that it aligns with your values and contributes to something bigger than yourself, that creates a very profound and sustainable form of happiness.
More than just pleasure.
Much more. It's about feeling engaged, like your life has significance.
There was the example of Raj in Mumbai.
Right. Raj was successful in his engineering career, had all the external markers of success, but felt empty. Something was missing.
What did he do?
He started volunteering, teaching coding skills to kids from underprivileged backgrounds. Seeing them learn and grow, knowing he was making a real difference in their lives, that gave him an immense sense of joy and purpose that his high-paying job never had.
Finding meaning through contribution. So how does someone find their purpose? It sounds like a big question.
It can be, but it often starts with self-reflection. What do you really care about? What are your core values? What activities make you feel engaged and alive?
Knowing yourself.
Exactly. Then try things out. Experiment. Volunteer for different causes. Try a new hobby. Set meaningful personal or professional goals that align with those values. Pay attention to what resonates. And remember, purpose isn't always one big thing. It can be found in different areas of life, and it can evolve over time. Be open to that.
So it's a journey of discovery. Okay, we've covered some powerful strategies. Mindfulness, gratitude, exercise, connection, purpose. But life isn't always smooth sailing. What about dealing with stress and adversity? How does that fit into training for happiness?
That's crucial. Happiness isn't about avoiding difficulty. It's partly about building resilience, the ability to bounce back from challenges. We can learn to reframe setbacks, seeing them not just as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and learning.
Like Elena in Santorini dealing with chronic pain.
Exactly. Chronic pain made constant happiness impossible in the conventional sense. But she used tools like CBT to manage negative thoughts about her pain, and mindfulness to find joy in small, present moments, the taste of her food, the beauty of the sunset. She built resilience and found contentment, despite her challenges.
Finding joy within the difficulty. And does our environment play a role?
It definitely can. Spending time in nature, for example, has been shown to reduce stress hormones and improve mood. Amara in London found that escaping the city bustle to spend time in Hyde Park, even joining a community gardening group, brought her a sense of peace and connection that really boosted her well-being.
So getting outside helps. What about when challenges are more serious, like mental health issues?
Then professional help is often essential. Therapy, like CBT, combined with these other practices like mindfulness, can be incredibly effective. Kofi in Accra, for instance, struggled with depression. He used a combination of therapy, rediscovering his love for music, and practicing mindfulness to navigate his way towards recovery and find a sustainable path to greater well-being. It's about using all the tools available.
Absolutely. It's interesting, too, how different cultures approach happiness. Any insights there?
Oh, definitely. Look at the Danish concept of hang. It's not about grand achievements, but about creating coziness, warmth, intimacy, enjoying simple pleasures with loved ones. Freja in Copenhagen embraced this by hosting small, cozy gatherings, focusing on atmosphere and connection.
Sounds lovely. And the Japanese concept?
Ikigai, finding your reason for being. It's about the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Hiroshi in Kyoto found his ikigai and deep joy by pursuing pottery after leaving an unfulfilling career. It's about aligning your life with that sense of purpose.
Different paths, but all aiming for a fulfilling life. Now, a common question, isn't happiness just genetic? Are some people just born happier?
Genetics certainly play a role, no doubt. Some people might have a naturally sunnier disposition, but remember epigenetics. Our actions and environment can influence how those genes are expressed. So genetics isn't destiny. We still have significant room to cultivate happiness through our choices and practices.
So even if you're not naturally bubbly, you can still work towards greater happiness.
Absolutely. The examples we've discussed, people overcoming adversity, burnout, loneliness, show that these practices can make a real difference for almost anyone willing to put in the effort.
Which brings us to long-term habits. How do we make these changes stick?
Consistency is key. Building a happiness routine, incorporating short bursts of these practices into your daily life helps strengthen those positive neural pathways. Maybe 5 minutes of meditation in the morning, jotting down gratitude before bed, a brisk walk at lunch, calling a friend in the evening.
Making it automatic.
Exactly. Like any habit, it takes time and conscious effort initially, but eventually it becomes more ingrained. And don't forget the foundation, sleep.
Ah, yes. Sleep. How important is that?
Hugely important for mood regulation, emotional processing, consolidating learning, including these new positive habits. Aiming for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep is fundamental. Priya in Bengaluru found that simply establishing a consistent sleep routine dramatically improved her mood and energy levels.
It all ties together. So back to our original question. Can you train your brain to be happier? What's the verdict?
The evidence strongly suggests yes. It's not about finding some magic switch for constant bliss, but about understanding how your brain works and then intentionally using these practical strategies, mindfulness, gratitude, exercise, connection, purpose, resilience, to cultivate more frequent and deeper feelings of joy, contentment, and well-being.
It sounds like it's definitely a journey, not a destination, but a worthwhile one.
Absolutely. Consistent effort in these areas really can lead to lasting, positive changes in your brain and how you experience life. It's empowering to know we have that capacity.
It really is. We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and, more importantly, some actionable steps you can start using today.
Remember, start small, be patient with yourself, and focus on consistency.
And if you found this conversation informative and helpful, please do like this video, share it with others who might benefit, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more deep dives into fascinating topics. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Welcome to the deep dive. So we've been looking through this really fascinating material you sent over research, stories, different viewpoints, all tackling, well, one of life's biggest questions. Can money really buy happiness?
That's a great question. And it seems simple, right? But as you saw, it pulls you into psychology, economics, philosophy, even just powerful real-life stories. It's complex.
Absolutely. And that's what we want to do in this deep dive, really get into the material, pull out the key insights for you, and explore that complicated link between having wealth and feeling good about life.
Yeah, it's definitely not a straight yes or no answer.
Not at all. So many layers. Okay, let's unpack this. I guess first off, when we talk about happiness, what do we actually mean? It's kind of subjective, isn't it?
That's the perfect place to start. Happiness isn't just one thing. The research breaks it down. There's your emotional well-being, you know, how you feel day to day, how often you feel positive emotions.
Right, like joy, contentment.
Exactly. Then there's life satisfaction. That's more of an overall assessment, like, are you happy with your life as a whole?
Okay.
And there's a deeper layer too, sometimes called eudaimonia. That's more about having a sense of purpose, meaning in life.
Purpose and meaning. Okay, so it's a mix of feelings, evaluation, and purpose. Got it. So diving into the psychology side of things from the material, what's a key idea about how we react when we get more money?
Well, one big concept that keeps coming up is the hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill. Sounds interesting.
It basically means we tend to adapt. Whether things get better or worse, our happiness often kind of drifts back to a sort of baseline level.
So like you get a raise, you're thrilled for a bit, but
Then it just becomes normal. That initial rush, it fades. You adapt to the new income, the new standard of living. Studies show this income boost can lift happiness short term, but the adaptation is pretty quick.
That makes total sense. We just get used to things. But surely, I mean, money must be crucial for happiness at a basic level if you're really struggling.
Oh, absolutely. That's fundamental. It ties right into ideas like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom, you have essential physiological needs, food, water, shelter, and safety needs like security and health.
And money directly addresses those.
Directly. For someone in poverty, having enough money isn't just nice, it's vital. It reduces that constant stress, allows for basic security, and builds the foundation for any kind of well-being.
And didn't some research point to a kind of income threshold for day-to-day happiness?
Yes, there was a well-known study focusing on the U.S. It found that emotional well-being, those daily positive feelings, tended to rise with income, but only up to a certain point.
Which was around
roughly $75,000 a year back then, which might be closer to $90,000 today. Beyond that level, more income didn't seem to significantly boost daily happiness much further.
Interesting. Daily happiness levels off, but overall life satisfaction could still go up.
That's what they found, yeah. People might still say they're more satisfied with their life overall, even if their day-to-day mood isn't much different.
That distinction is really key. It makes you think about those huge lottery winner stories. Like Jack Whittaker, you'd assume instant permanent bliss.
It's often so much more complicated. Whittaker won, $315 million? Huge amount. Initial euphoria, buying houses, cars, donated.
Yeah, the dream scenario.
But then it just spiraled. Lawsuits, family tragedies, addiction, isolation. He apparently even said he wished he'd torn up the ticket.
Wow, that's sobering. It really highlights that hedonic adaptation, but also maybe the downsides of sudden massive wealth.
Exactly. It underlines findings that sudden wealth brings its own set of problems. Social pressures, managing the money, unmet expectations. Sometimes it actually leads to less happiness.
Okay, so money is critical for getting out of hardship. Let's focus a bit more on its role as a foundation.
For people experiencing poverty, the link is crystal clear. Enough money means access to essentials. Food, clean water, healthcare, safe housing. That dramatically reduces chronic stress.
It's about removing negatives, basically. Removing the constant worry.
Precisely. It improves the fundamental quality of life. And you see this reflected globally, too.
How so?
Well, big studies like the World Happiness Report consistently find that countries with higher average incomes generally report higher life satisfaction, especially in places where many people are still struggling to meet those basic needs. Lifting people out of deprivation boosts national well-being.
The material had some really impactful examples of this on a smaller scale, too.
Definitely. Think about microfinance, like the Grameen Bank, giving small loans, often just $100 or so, especially to women in poverty.
Like the story of Fatima Begum.
A perfect example. She got a small loan, bought a sewing machine, started a business. Suddenly, she could afford better food, schooling, healthcare for her kids.
Not just the money, it's the empowerment.
Absolutely. It boosted her financial stability, sure, but also her confidence, her standing in the community. It was transformative.
And larger government programs can have similar effects.
Right. Look at Brazil's Bolsa Familia. It's a conditional cash transfer program. Low-income families get monthly payments if they meet conditions like keeping kids in school, getting vaccinations.
So it incentivizes good practices while providing support.
And studies show it works. It's reduced hunger, improved health, and boosted life satisfaction for millions. It just shows how powerful money can be when it's directly targeting deprivation and securing those basic needs. That's where its link to happiness is strongest.
Okay, so undeniable impact at the foundational level. But what happens once those basic needs are met? When you have enough and maybe more than enough?
That's where the relationship gets, well, fuzzier. It's not so straightforward anymore. This brings us to something called the Easterlin paradox.
Easterlin paradox, what's the gist?
Proposed back in the 70s, it suggests that beyond a certain income point, getting even richer doesn't really lead to a big jump in national happiness levels. Within a country, richer people might be happier than poorer people, but as a whole country gets richer over time, average happiness doesn't necessarily increase much.
Why is that? More resources should mean more happiness, shouldn't it? Logically.
You'd think so. But a few factors seem to be at play. One big one is social comparison. We tend to judge our own well-being by looking at others.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. If your income goes up, but so does everyone else's, or your neighbor gets a fancier car, you might not feel any better off. You just adapt your reference point.
Right. And simply buying more things.
That often doesn't hit the spot either. Accumulating material possessions doesn't necessarily fulfill deeper human needs, things like finding purpose, feeling connected to others, having a sense of autonomy or control over your life.
So even someone with, immense wealth might not be incredibly happy.
The example suggests that's true. Think about someone like Elon Musk. Obviously, staggering wealth, incredible influence. Yet he's spoken openly about loneliness, about intense stress, grappling with big existential questions.
The pressure must be immense.
Reportedly working 100-hour weeks, leading multiple huge companies. The wealth provides luxury and power, no doubt. But it doesn't seem to grant immunity from very human struggles. It suggests money alone just doesn't fulfill those higher-level needs.
That's a really striking point. And I guess our expectations just keep shifting upwards, too.
Absolutely. As income rises, aspirations tend to rise with it. What felt like a luxury yesterday is just standard today. You need more to get the same feeling.
Is there an income point where life satisfaction peaks?
Some research suggests there might be, and it varies globally. Maybe $60,000 in Latin America, over $100,000 in Western Europe, according to one study. But even when people reach those levels, the cycle can continue wanting more, driven by society, by lifestyle inflation.
So it's a cycle. Basic needs met, then the treadmill and comparisons kick in.
Pretty much. Which leads to a really crucial insight from the research. How you spend your money often matters more for happiness than just how much you have.
Now this is where it gets really interesting.
Totally. Researchers like Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton have done fantastic work here. Their findings consistently show that spending money on experiences,
Like travel, concerts, learning something new.
Exactly. And spending money on others' gifts for friends, donations to charity, tends to generate more lasting happiness than buying material goods.
Why the difference? Why do experiences and giving pack more punch than stuff?
Well, experiences create memories. You can savor them beforehand, enjoy them during, and reminisce afterward. They often involve other people, strengthening social connections.
Right. Memories don't depreciate like a new gadget.
And giving to others, what researchers call pro-social spending, taps into our fundamental need for connection and making a difference. It just feels good. It builds a sense of purpose.
The story of that Johnson family really jumped out at me. Selling their house for experiences.
It's a great example, isn't it? They made a conscious choice, sold the suburban home, used savings and remote work income to travel the world for years.
Over 30 countries, right?
Yeah, focusing on experiences, hiking, volunteering, cultural immersion. They reported it massively deepened their family bonds and gave them a sense of fulfillment that, a bigger house just couldn't provide.
And the science backs up the good feeling from giving.
It does. Brain scans show that spending money on others activates reward centers in the brain. It genuinely makes us feel happier. Even billionaires like Warren Buffett, pledging most of his fortune away, talk about the immense purpose and satisfaction they get from giving.
Far beyond just accumulating more.
Far beyond. And then there's the incredible story of Osceola McCarty.
The washerwoman. That was amazing.
Just incredible. Lived very frugally her whole life, saved up $150,000, and then in her old age, donated it all to fund scholarships for underprivileged students.
Wow. Despite her own modest life.
And it brought her huge personal satisfaction, national recognition. It's such a powerful illustration that money's positive effect on happiness is often strongest when it's used to benefit others.
These examples really drive home that it's the use of money, the intention behind it, that matters so much. But, the material also pointed out a darker side to wealth sometimes.
It definitely can have challenges. While money opens doors, it can also bring unique pressures, difficulty trusting people, maybe even isolation.
It seems odd that having more could make you feel more alone.
Yeah, but some high net worth individuals report struggling with authentic connections. They worry if people are interested in them or their money. It can create a barrier.
And the actual pursuit of wealth itself can be a trap.
It can. An obsessive focus on getting richer can lead to workaholism, burnout, neglecting relationships, or even crossing ethical lines.
Bernie Madoff is a chilling example of that.
A really stark one from the material, yes. Hugely successful on Wall Street, built a massive fortune, but it was all a lie. A giant Ponzi scheme.
The damage was immense.
His single-minded pursuit of wealth led to deceit on an epic scale, destroying his reputation, his family, his freedom, and devastating thousands of victims. It's a powerful warning about how an unchecked desire for money can corrupt values and ultimately destroy well-being.
And there's even research suggesting wealth can sometimes link to other issues, like stress or maybe lower empathy.
Yeah, some studies have noted correlations. Higher income individuals sometimes report higher stress, maybe lower empathy in certain situations. The constant pressure to maintain wealth or status can be a significant source of anxiety.
So money isn't a magic wand. It solves some problems, but can definitely create others. And this whole picture seems to change depending on your culture, too.
That's a really important layer. The money-happiness link isn't universal. It's shaped by cultural values and context.
So in places like the U.S.,
where individualism is often emphasized, wealth can be strongly tied to perceptions of personal success. This might actually intensify that social comparison effect, feeling like you need to measure up financially.
whereas in more collectivist cultures,
Like in parts of East Asia or Africa, money's value might be viewed more through the lens of supporting family, contributing to the community, upholding group harmony. So wealth might impact happiness differently, maybe more through its communal benefits.
did the material mention any places that actively try to prioritize well-being over just economic growth?
Bhutan is the classic example. They famously use gross national happiness, or GNH, instead of just GDP.
Right, GNH. What does that include?
It looks at things holistically: health, education, cultural preservation, good governance, environmental sustainability, community vitality, not just economic output.
And does it work? Are they happier?
They often rank quite high in happiness surveys, particularly within Asia. It suggests that a society's priorities and values can foster well-being, maybe even more than just sheer national wealth.
And even within a country like the U.S., does context matter? City versus rural, for instance.
Big time. In cities, the cost of living is higher. There's often more visible wealth, more social pressure maybe. So the income level linked to happiness might need to be higher there.
Compared to rural areas.
Right. In rural settings, community ties might be stronger, daily expenses lower, less income might go further towards contentment. One study mentioned rural Americans reporting higher life satisfaction than urbanites at similar income levels, possibly due to less comparison.
Fascinating. So
Yeah.
context is key. And underlying a lot of this seems to be our mindset, how we think about money and life.
Huge factor. Mindset is critical. We talked about that hedonic treadmill, how we get used to things. New income, new possessions become the norm pretty quickly.
So how do you fight that?
Yeah.
How do you stay happy with what you have?
Well, practices like gratitude and mindfulness seem really powerful. Research shows that consistently practicing gratitude, like keeping a journal of things you're thankful for, can significantly boost happiness, like by 25% in one study, regardless of income.
Just by shifting focus.
Exactly. Focusing on appreciating what you have rather than always chasing what you don't.
And the whole minimalist movement seems connected here.
Very much so. Think of the minimalists, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus. They walked away from high-paying corporate jobs.
To live with less stuff.
Right. They intentionally reduced possessions, shifted focus onto relationships, experiences, personal growth, and they report being much happier, much more fulfilled, despite lower incomes. It's about consciously choosing what you value over just accumulating things.
It's striking how these modern ideas seem to echo really ancient philosophical thoughts.
Isn't it? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. Epicurus, back in ancient Greece, argued happiness wasn't about wealth, but simple pleasures.
Like what?
Friendships, freedom, time for reflection. He thought those were the keys, not riches.
And the Stoics.
They emphasized inner contentment, finding peace and virtue regardless of external circumstances, whether you are rich or poor. It's about mastering your internal state, not depending on external validation or possessions.
These ideas feel very relevant today.
They really do. Think about Diogenes, the Cynic philosopher who supposedly lived in a barrel.
A bit extreme, maybe.
Definitely unconventional. But his point was rejecting materialism to focus on virtue and freedom. It's a radical challenge to consumerism that still makes you think.
And you see echoes in modern movements too, right?
For sure, like the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, people saving aggressively, living simply to gain control over their time.
Like Pete and the Mr. Money mustache.
Exactly. He retired super early by living frugally. Now focuses on family, hobbies, community stuff in Colorado. Reports high life satisfaction. It's about using money as a tool to buy freedom and time for what truly matters, not just endless accumulation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Psychology, economics, stories, philosophy. Let's try to pull it together. Based on all this material, what are the practical takeaways? How can you use money to actually maximize happiness?
Right, the practical strategies, it really comes down to being intentional.
So, number one.
Meet basic needs first. Prioritize financial security. Cover housing, food, healthcare. Get that foundation solid. Reducing that fundamental stress is huge for well-being.
Makes sense. Build the base, then.
Second, prioritize experiences over things. Make conscious choices. Invest in travel, learning, shared activities with loved ones. These build lasting memories and connections in ways material goods often don't.
Okay, experiences over stuff. What else?
Third, give generously. Find ways to spend on others or support causes you care about. The research is clear. It boosts happiness, creates purpose, strengthens social ties.
Giving feels good, basically.
It really does. Fourth, practice gratitude. Actively appreciate what you have, keep a journal, reflect regularly. It's a powerful antidote to the hedonic treadmill and wanting more.
Counteract the adaptation. And finally,
fifth, align spending with your values. Figure out what's truly important to you. Family, creativity, community, health. Then make sure your financial choices reflect those priorities. Spending in line with your values brings a deeper satisfaction.
And people like Pete Adney show it's possible to live this way.
He's a great example of applying these principles. Saved diligently, lived simply, gained freedom, and focused on what brings him joy beyond just money. It shows how strategic financial choices really can enhance well-being.
So let's circle all the way back. The big question. Can money really buy happiness?
Based on this deep dive, the answer is complex. It's a yes, but. Or maybe it depends. Money is definitely a tool and a powerful one, but its effectiveness for happiness depends hugely on context, use, and mindset.
It's most powerful when?
When it's lifting people out of poverty, securing basic needs, reducing that grinding stress. Also, when it enables meaningful experiences and allows you to be generous towards others. In those areas, its impact is profound.
But once you have enough,
that's where the impact significantly lessens for many people. Beyond that point, other things seem to matter much more. The quality of your relationships, having a sense of purpose, feeling autonomous, cultivating gratitude, those become the bigger drivers of well-being.
The stories really highlighted that, didn't they? The lottery winner's struggles versus the fulfillment of the philanthropist or the minimalist.
They powerfully illustrate that the value of wealth for happiness seems to lie much more in how it's used, how it aligns with deeper needs, rather than just the sheer amount you have piled up.
It really does echo that ancient wisdom again.
It does. Aristotle talking about happiness, eudaimonia, as the ultimate goal, achieved through balance and virtue. It feels incredibly relevant today with global inequality and consumer pressures.
So maybe true fulfillment isn't really about the bank balance.
It seems it's much more about the richness of your life experiences, your connections, your contribution, your inner state, aligning your resources, whatever they are, with your values, fostering contentment.
And like Epicurus said, do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not.
A perfect thought to end on. Focus on building that rich life, not just a rich bank account.
We really hope this deep dive into the complex relationship between money and happiness gave you some valuable food for thought. If you found this interesting and useful, please do remember to like this video, share it with others who might benefit, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more deep dives.
Hello, welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into a topic that feels, well, truly unavoidable right now. Artificial intelligence. And the big question we're unpacking is AI primarily a friend or a foe?
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
And AI, it's shaping everything around us, isn't it? How we work, learn, our health, the environment, just everything. It's a technology with incredible potential, sparking real excitement, but also, some very real concerns. There's definitely this duality at play.
Absolutely. And our mission in this deep dive is really to unpack the material you've shared with us, to try and understand that duality. We want to explore the amazing benefits AI offers, but also, critically, the significant risks it introduces and what all of this means for us right now and, well, as we look to the future.
Right. So we'll start by getting clear on what AI actually is, maybe a bit about how it evolved.
Yeah.
Then we can explore its impact across different areas, healthcare, education, jobs, that sort of thing. And we'll definitely need to get into those crucial conversations happening around ethics and how we try to manage this powerful technology.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When people talk about artificial intelligence, AI, what are they fundamentally referring to? What's the core idea?
At its heart, AI is about creating systems, machines really, that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. So things like reasoning, learning from information, understanding what's going on around them, perception, and making decisions based on that.
Right. And it's helpful, I think, to make a distinction the material points out. There's the AI we mostly interact with day to day.
That's right, yeah. That's what we generally call narrow AI, or sometimes weak AI. This is AI designed to do one specific thing really, really well. Think of voice assistants on your phone, or the recommendations you get shopping online, maybe AI systems helping doctors analyze medical scans. This type of AI is very much here, right now, integrated into our lives in 2025.
Okay, so specialized AI. And then there's the other kind, the one we might see more in science fiction.
Exactly, yeah. That's artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That's the idea, the aspiration, really, of a machine having human-level intelligence across a wide range of tasks, able to learn and apply its intelligence broadly, flexibly, like a person can. That remains a theoretical goal for now. It's not something we've achieved yet.
Got it. So we're mostly dealing with these highly capable but specialized AI tools currently. Where did the idea for all this even begin? It feels new, but it's not, is it?
Not at all. The foundational thinking goes way back, decades actually. I mean, ideas about intelligent machines were discussed quite early. Alan Turing, way back in 1950, famously proposed his test, the Turing test for machine intelligence.
Okay, but the actual term artificial intelligence was coined a bit later.
Yes, it was formally named at a conference at Dartmouth College in 1956. That event is often seen as the sort of official birth of the field as a distinct discipline.
Right, and we saw early attempts, didn't we, with things like expert systems, these rules-based AI for specific problems.
True, yeah. There was some progress there, but those early systems, they kind of hit limits. They bumped up against the available data, which wasn't much back then, and the computing power just wasn't there. That led to periods people sometimes called an AI winter where, progress slowed, funding dried up a bit.
A kind of quiet phase before things really, really took off again.
Exactly. The revival, the big push forward, came with advances in machine learning, particularly things like neural networks in the, say, 90s and 2000s. IBM's Deep Blue beating chess champion Garry Kasparov in 1987, that was a huge symbolic moment. It showed AI could actually handle complex strategy.
And then the last decade or so brought this, well, explosion is the only word for it.
That's the deep learning revolution. It was fueled by this perfect storm, really. A combination of, first, just massive amounts of data becoming available, big data. Second, hugely increased computing power, thanks to specialized hardware like GPUs and TPUs. And third, significant breakthroughs in the algorithms themselves, like the development of transformers, which are, well, they're absolutely key to modern language AI.
Which brings us right up to the 2020s, the era of generative AI that we're in now.
Right. These are the tools that can create content, text, images, even computer code. Models like GPT-4, Grok, DLE, Midjourney, they've made AI much more visible and accessible to, well, pretty much everyone. By now, in 2025, AI is integrated into so many daily tools, and it's even being used in really advanced ways, like accelerating scientific discovery.
Okay, so if we look at this incredible progress, let's really explore the friend side of AI. How is it actively helping us solve problems and, improve lives?
This is where AI's potential for positive transformation is really, really clear. Take healthcare, for instance. It's having a dramatic impact on improving diagnosis and speeding up the development of new treatments.
Okay, yeah. The material mentions something called Google's AMI. What's that?
Yes, AAE. It's an AI system designed specifically to help interpret medical images, things like X-rays, CT scans. Reports indicate its accuracy is actually starting to rival human specialists in certain areas, and in pilot programs, it's shown to reduce diagnostic errors by about 15%, which is significant. It means catching serious issues sooner.
And that must have a profound impact in places where access to, say, radiologists or specialists might be really limited.
Exactly. That's a key benefit. By integrating into, say, mobile health systems, it's bringing advanced diagnostic capabilities to communities in places like rural India. That can essentially save thousands of lives by enabling earlier detection intervention where it wasn't possible before.
Wow. And drug discovery seems like another area where AI is proving to be a real game changer.
It really is, yeah. AI platforms, like one mentioned from in silico medicine, can sift through just vast biological data sets, looking for patterns and identify potential drug candidates at incredible speed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, they identified potential candidates in weeks, a process that normally takes years. And by this year, 2025, their AI has helped develop treatments for really complex diseases like Alzheimer's and some rare cancers, significantly cutting development time and, crucially, cost reportedly by around 30%.
It's not just physical health either, is it? AI is even offering support for mental well-being.
Absolutely. AI chatbots are using conversational AI to provide things like cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. One example, Wobot, reported helping over 1 million users manage anxiety and depression by 2024. It offers accessible support, especially valuable where traditional therapy might be hard to access or stigmatized.
Okay, shifting gears to education. How is AI making learning more accessible or maybe more personalized?
Platforms like Duolingo are a good example. They're increasingly using AI to tailor lessons to individual learners. Their recent shift to an AI-first model uses machine learning to analyze how a user learns best and then personalizes the learning path for them.
The scale of that is just huge, isn't it?
It really is. With literally billions of lessons completed, it's empowering learners from really diverse backgrounds. Refugees, people in low-income situations, rural areas, giving them tools to learn new languages. Though it's worth noting that shift did come with some discussion around impacts on human contractors, which touches on the other side of the coin we'll discuss later.
Right. And in places like rural India, you mentioned earlier, AI is helping address things like teacher shortages.
Yes, exactly. Systems like those used by BYJUS can provide personalized tutoring. The AI analyzes a student's performance and tailors the lessons. Pilot programs in schools have shown marked improvements, like a 20% increase in math and science proficiency, which is really critical in areas with limited teaching resources.
And what about students with special needs? Is AI helping there?
It is. There are tools like Google's Project Euphonia, which uses AI to better understand and transcribe speech from people with speech impairments. This allows students who might otherwise struggle to communicate verbally to participate more fully in classrooms. A pilot in 2024 really highlighted the impact on inclusion.
That's incredible. Let's talk about the environment. AI is also proving to be a powerful ally in environmental sustainability.
Yes, definitely. A great example is Google's use of DeepMind AI in their massive data centers. By having AI constantly optimize the cooling systems, they've managed to reduce energy usage by a staggering 40% since 2016. And by 2025, this technology is being licensed and adopted by other industries, potentially cutting global carbon emissions by millions of tons each year.
That's a huge impact from just optimizing cooling and using AI to protect forests. How does that work?
Systems like Global Forest Watch use a combination of AI and satellite imagery. The AI analyzes the images to detect signs of illegal deforestation in near real time. This allowed authorities in Brazil, for example, to get alerts and respond much faster, helping them reduce illegal logging in the Amazon by about 15% in 2024.
And predicting climate impacts for things like farming.
Right. AI models are getting really good at processing climate data to predict weather patterns and optimize crop yields. Reports show tools like Climate AI helped farmers in Kenya, for instance, increase their yields by about 25% in 2025, which is vital for adapting to changing climate conditions and ensuring food security.
AI is also doing a lot for accessibility, empowering individuals with disabilities.
Microsoft's Seeing AI app is a fantastic example. It uses computer vision on a smartphone to describe the world to visually impaired users reading text, identifying objects, even recognizing people. There was a story from Kenya highlighting how a user could navigate a busy market independently using the app. And by this year, it supports over 10 languages, making it useful globally.
And bridging communication gaps, like sign language.
Yes, tools like Signal are using AI to translate sign language into text or spoken language in real time. It's starting to be integrated into communication platforms like Zoom, with reports of high accuracy for languages like American Sign Language. This really opens up new possibilities for deaf individuals to communicate more easily.
Okay, let's look at industry. In manufacturing, AI is driving efficiency gains, right?
Big time. Systems like Siemens MindSphere use AI for what's called predictive maintenance. By analyzing data from sensors on machines, the AI can predict potential failures before they happen, allowing for maintenance to be scheduled proactively. One plant reported a 20% reduction in downtime, saving millions annually.
And we touched on this earlier with companies like Foxconn using AI robots in assembly.
Right. Automating assembly lines with AI-powered robots boosted output by around 30% in some of their factories. But again, this is one of those areas that really shows the duality we talked about, that increased efficiency often comes with complex impacts on the human workforce, which is definitely something we need to explore more on the faux side.
Understood. And of course, AI is already woven into our daily convenience in ways we might not even notice.
Absolutely. Think about all the AI features embedded in our smartphones now, rolled out by companies like Apple. Things like enhanced photo editing, more accurate predictive text, sophisticated health monitoring. These features are used by billions of people every single day. Even things like AI-assisted fitness tracking, specifically designed for elderly users.
And tools helping us manage the flood of information.
Exactly. Platforms like Microsoft Copilot Daily, which launched this year, use AI to help prioritize emails, summarize documents, streamline tasks, and generally make our digital workflows more efficient. Early reports suggest pretty high user satisfaction.
AI is also becoming a major catalyst in basic scientific discovery itself.
Yes, definitely. Systems like Microsoft's AI2BMD are accelerating research by simulating incredibly complex processes, like how proteins fold and interact, which is crucial for drug development. It's reportedly helped speed up progress on potential treatments for diseases like Parkinson's, which are now moving into clinical trials.
And AI is helping us explore the universe, literally.
Yeah, AI is being used to analyze vast amounts of data from telescopes to help astronomers find exoplanets, planets outside our solar system. It's also used to analyze complex climate models to optimize renewable energy grids. And just recently, AI analyzing Mars rover data provided new evidence suggesting possible ancient microbial life on the planet.
Wow. Okay, finally on the friend side, AI is clearly fueling economic growth.
The numbers are pretty staggering. Reports project the global AI market could reach nearly $5 trillion within the next decade. And importantly, it's already created millions of new jobs in fields directly related to AI, like data science, AI engineering, and also in areas like AI ethics and governance since 2020.
And it's not just big tech, it's helping small businesses too.
Yes. Platforms like Shopify use AI to give smaller merchants access to powerful insights, understanding customer behavior, optimizing inventory tools that were previously only available to large corporations. This has helped millions of merchants increase their sales significantly, leveling the playing field somewhat.
Okay, so that's a really compelling picture of AI as a friend, solving huge problems, creating new opportunities, enhancing our lives. But with great power comes, potential downside. Let's turn now to the foe side, the challenges, the risks, the concerns.
This is the crucial flip side, absolutely. And one of the most immediate and frankly concerning risks is misinformation, which is being massively amplified by deepfakes.
Right. We've all seen how frighteningly easy it's become to create convincing but entirely false audio images or video content.
Exactly. An AI-generated image of a major public figure that went viral this year really highlighted how persuasive these fakes can be and how quickly they can spread. And while detection tools are improving, they're still playing catch-up. They're far from perfect, maybe catching 80% if we're lucky.
And this is already prompting legal responses, isn't it?
We're starting to see that, yes. Court orders are being issued to block malicious deepfakes, like a recent case in India targeting public figures. It reflects a growing global recognition that this needs to be tackled legally.
Okay, another really significant concern, the one many people worry about first, is job displacement.
Yes. Automation powered by AI is a genuine threat in many sectors, particularly those involving repetitive or predictable tasks. We touched on examples like Duolingo reducing contractor roles after implementing more AI, or Foxconn automating assembly lines. Analysis from groups like McKinsey suggests a really significant percentage of current work hours could potentially be automated in the coming years.
And this isn't just impacting traditional manufacturing or translation jobs, right?
No, it's affecting the gig economy too. Think about ride-sharing drivers. The AI algorithms that optimize routes and pricing have also been linked, in some cases, to reductions in driver autonomy and wages, leading to protests in places like California just last year.
Privacy and surveillance are also just major ethical minefields with AI.
Huge concerns here. AI systems thrive on data, and they can collect and analyze vast amounts of it, raising serious questions about how that information is used and protected. There are reports, for instance, indicating AI is being used by some police departments to essentially bypass restrictions on facial recognition technology.
And sometimes with deeply concerning results, leading to errors.
Yes, unfortunately. There have been documented cases in the U.S. where AI misidentified individuals, leading to wrongful arrests. And on a much larger systemic scale, you have systems like China's social credit system, which is increasingly reliant on AI monitoring of citizen behavior. Critics argue this raises profound concerns about individual freedom, privacy, and the potential for suppressing dissent. Millions have reportedly faced penalties already.
The use of AI in defense and military applications is another incredibly morally complex area.
It really is. The trend of advanced AI research programs transitioning from direct military control to the private sector raises complicated questions about accountability and oversight, especially as AI gets integrated into things like drone targeting systems.
And we've tragically seen mistakes happen with autonomous systems.
Yes, there was an incident reported in Syria in 2023 where an AI-guided drone strike apparently misidentified a target, resulting in civilian deaths. This highlights the immense dangers, and it's fueling a growing international movement calling for treaties or bans on lethal autonomous weapons, killer robots. Many countries, over 50 by 2025, now support a UN resolution on this.
Security is another risk, not just from misuse by governments, but from AI enhancing cyber threats from criminals or other actors.
Definitely. AI is making cyber attacks more sophisticated and harder to detect. We saw that deepfake scam in Hong Kong this year that defrauded a company of $25 million using AI-generated video conferencing. Law enforcement agencies like the FBI are reporting a huge jump, like 300%, in AI-driven fraud just in the last couple of years.
And nation-states are actively developing these capabilities too.
Yes, unfortunately. Major global powers like China and Russia are known to be developing AI tools specifically for cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns. NATO reports warn about the potential for AI-powered disinformation targeting elections, for example.
Finally, it feels like the legal and ethical frameworks, the rules, are really struggling to keep pace with how fast AI is evolving.
That gap is a really significant challenge. Take copyright, for example. It's a complete mess right now. Industries like music and publishing are deeply worried about AI models being trained on their copyrighted material without permission or compensation. And then you have the issue of who owns the copyright for AI-generated music or art. Lawsuits are starting to bubble up all over the place.
And the problem of bias in AI tools, that hasn't gone away, has it?
No, it remains a stubborn problem. Despite efforts to improve fairness, studies coming out this year still show that a significant percentage of AI hiring tools, for instance, exhibit biases based on gender or race, often reflecting the biases present in the historical data they were trained on. This just highlights the urgent need for clearer regulations and much more work on auditing and ensuring fairness to prevent AI from just perpetuating or even amplifying existing societal inequalities.
So, okay, we have this powerful technology, incredible potential on one hand, really significant risks on the other. How are we attempting to balance these scales? What efforts are underway to try and manage AI's impact responsibly?
Well, it's clear that just letting it develop unchecked isn't an option. Robust ethical guidelines and regulatory frameworks are seen as absolutely essential. The conversation you see online among researchers in policy circles, it often circles back to some key ethical principles.
Things like transparency, knowing how an AI works, fairness, avoiding bias, accountability, knowing who's responsible, privacy.
Those are absolutely core, yes. People are really emphasizing that AI systems need to be, as much as possible, understandable, not just black boxes. They need to produce fair outcomes, or at least we need ways to detect and correct unfairness. There need to be clear lines of responsibility when things go wrong. And of course, protecting user data and privacy is paramount. There's a lot of discussion about making sure AI doesn't just automate or amplify existing human flaws, particularly our biases.
And we're seeing efforts to establish these principles on a larger global scale.
We are. A really landmark effort is the EU AI Act, which was enacted last year. It takes a risk-based approach, categorizing AI systems based on their potential harm and putting strict rules on high-risk applications, like those used in critical infrastructure or hiring. And it's proving quite influential. Many other countries, perhaps 30 or so by this year, are looking at or starting to adopt similar frameworks.
UNESCO has also provided guidance, right?
Yes. Their recommendation on the ethics of AI, adopted a few years back, promotes a very human-centered approach. It emphasizes principles like human rights, inclusivity, diversity, and environmental sustainability in AI development and deployment. It's guiding policy discussions in a majority of its member states.
And in places like the U.S., where comprehensive federal regulation has been maybe a bit slower, we're seeing states stepping in.
Exactly. States like California and New York are taking the lead, implementing their own rules, focusing on things like AI transparency in government use, or mitigating bias in automated decision systems. This is creating a sort of patchwork of regulations across the country for now, which has its own challenges.
It's not just governments either. Industries themselves are launching initiatives, aren't they?
Yes, some companies are publicly emphasizing ethical development, as part of their core mission. You see companies positioning their AI work as being primarily for societal good, like accelerating scientific discovery with ethical use built in. Others, like Microsoft, have established internal responsible AI frameworks with processes for risk assessment, bias testing, and building technical safeguards into their products, like the Copilot tools.
Although we did see that debate recently, didn't we, with Google's updated AI principles reportedly removing explicit harm avoidance language. That caused a stir.
It certainly did.
Yeah.
And it sparked a lot of discussion about the effectiveness of industry self-regulation versus the need for more robust, externally enforced guardrails. It really highlights that these ethical frameworks are still very much evolving and subject to intense debate and scrutiny.
Okay, so looking ahead now, what does the future hold for AI? What are some of the emerging trends or directions we're seeing?
Well, one trend getting a lot of attention is something called agentic AI.
Agentic AI, what does that mean exactly?
Think of AI systems that can act more autonomously. Instead of just responding to a prompt, they can take initiative, plan, and execute multi-step tasks or workflows on their own. Things like scheduling complex meetings across multiple people's calendars or analyzing large data sets and generating reports without constant human prompting. Reports this year show pretty significant adoption already among IT leaders, with much more expected very soon.
Interesting. We're also seeing multimodal AI evolving really rapidly.
Yeah, that's AI that can understand and work with different types of data, different modalities simultaneously. So text, images, audio, video, even sensor data. Think of AI that can generate a short video clip just from a text description, or understand a complex technical diagram alongside written instructions. This opens up huge possibilities, like AI-generated films or more intuitive human-computer interaction.
And AI is even heading into space exploration more seriously.
It is. NASA, for instance, is planning to use more advanced AI on future Mars rovers. The idea is to allow the rovers to analyze the terrain ahead and make navigation decisions in real time on Mars without waiting hours for commands from Earth. This could potentially save mission costs and dramatically increase the pace of exploration.
But as AI capabilities advance like this, the need to proactively address future risks obviously continues, maybe even intensifies.
Absolutely. A major ongoing focus has to be on upskilling and reskilling workforces to prepare for the shifts AI will bring to the economy. We're seeing significant investments in training programs globally. Models like Finland's National AI Training Program, which aim to educate a large percentage of its population on AI basics, show what's possible on a large scale.
And the fight against bias isn't over, even with more advanced AI.
Not by a long shot. While algorithmic techniques for reducing bias in models are improving, a fundamental challenge remains ensuring the data used to train these systems is diverse, representative, and doesn't embed historical inequalities. Data diversity and quality are still major hurdles.
And international collaboration seems absolutely crucial for managing the global risks, like safety and security.
It is totally essential. Global summits focused on AI safety, like the one held last year, are leading to important agreements on risk management frameworks and developing shared technical standards. Dozens of countries are now committed to working together on this, which is a positive sign.
And finally, that theoretical goal we talked about at the start, artificial general intelligence, AGI, where are we on that?
That still feels like a fairly distant prospect, honestly. Research continues into entirely new architectures, like neurosymbolic AI, which tries to combine neural networks with logical reasoning, and ways for AI to learn and reason more broadly. But many leading experts also continue to caution about the profound potential risks if we were to achieve highly autonomous, general-purpose AI agents without first ensuring they are robustly and provably aligned with human values and safety. The alignment problem is a huge challenge.
So it really does keep coming back to that core question we started with, doesn't it? AI is this incredibly powerful, truly double-edged sword.
Without a doubt. On one hand, it clearly acts as a friend, offering genuinely groundbreaking solutions to some of our biggest global challenges. From diagnosing disease more accurately, especially in underserved areas, to helping farmers adapt to climate change, to accelerating scientific discovery at an unprecedented pace. The real-world examples we discussed show that tangible positive impact is already happening.
But on the other hand, it presents really significant risks, acting as a potential foe. Through things like highly sophisticated misinformation campaigns, the potential for widespread job disruption, serious privacy and surveillance concerns, and the persistent challenge of bias baked into its applications. The impact of deepfakes or the profound ethical questions around autonomous weapons, they really underscore this darker potential.
It's definitely not a simple either situation. The very same underlying AI technology can often have both incredibly beneficial and potentially harmful applications, depending entirely on how it's developed, deployed, and governed.
Which means, as AI continues its incredibly rapid evolution, it seems clearer than ever that prioritizing ethical development, implementing thoughtful and robust regulations, and fostering genuine global cooperation aren't just, nice ideas. They're absolutely essential.
I agree. To truly harness AI's immense potential for a better future, we have to actively, consciously work towards maximizing transparency, ensuring fairness, and demanding accountability. That's really how we try to ensure it remains an ally for humanity rather than becoming something we rightfully fear.
So, considering everything we've explored in this deep dive, the incredible capabilities AI now offers and the serious challenges it presents, maybe the final thought for you, our listener, is, what does this rapid evolution mean for your daily life in the coming years? And how can you stay informed and perhaps even participate in the crucial ongoing conversation about its future?
It's definitely a conversation we all need to be part of as this technology continues to reshape, pretty much everything.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into artificial intelligence, friend or foe. We really hope this exploration has given you a clearer, perhaps more nuanced picture of this transformative technology. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast topic is technology making us smarter or lazier? This is a question that, it feels more relevant basically every single day, doesn't it?
It really does. We're just swimming in technology, aren't we?
Completely. I mean, your smartphone is probably in your hand or pocket right now. AI seems to be predicting what we want to search for almost before we think it.
And getting information. It's instant, like turning on a tap.
Exactly. And that brings us to this really fundamental question about our own minds, our own thinking.
Yeah, is all this connectivity, this, limitless access to everything, is it actually making our brains sharper?
Is it genuinely boosting our ability to think deeply, to learn effectively, maybe even to be more creative?
Or is there a flip side? Could it be sort of subtly lulling us into a kind of mental comfort zone?
Making us intellectually complacent, less willing to do the heavy lifting mentally.
At the core of the debate, I think.
It's a really profound puzzle, and the implications are just massive. It affects, everything, how we learn.
Whether that's academic stuff or, trying to get your head around English grammar.
Right. And how we work, how we interact, how we just connect with people in this digital world we're all living in.
Absolutely. So our goal today in this deep dive is to really take the ideas and arguments that have come up in research and discussion and just unpack this really complex relationship. It's definitely not straightforward.
We want to explore those compelling arguments about how technology might be pushing us forward towards more knowledge, more capability.
But also, and this is crucial, look honestly at the ways it could potentially be holding us back, how it might hinder that deep focused thinking, or maybe even make us less good at solving problems independently.
Okay, so let's start on the positive foot. The case for technology as a real catalyst for intellectual growth. One of the most striking points is just the sheer access to knowledge it gives us.
That's undeniable, isn't it? The digital age has, it's fundamentally changed the game. It's basically torn down old barriers.
Like geography or cost. Things that used to limit who could learn what.
Exactly. And now, vast, almost unimaginable amounts of information and educational resources are available to, billions of people. It's a democratization of knowledge on a scale we've never seen before in human history.
It really is like the biggest library imaginable, but it fits in your pocket and you can access it from anywhere. You see examples like those massive open online courses, MOOCs.
Oh, yeah. Platforms like Coursera, EDX, Khan Academy, even university-specific platforms. These aren't just little extras. They offer full-blown courses.
Sometimes with lectures straight from professors at, top universities around the globe.
And the sheer variety is mind-boggling. You can dive into super complex science like quantum mechanics if you really want to.
Or explore really nuanced humanities topics like post-colonial literature or, deep philosophical debates.
Stuff that maybe just 20 or 30 years ago was pretty much locked away in university libraries, accessible only to a few.
And if your goal is specifically mastering English, especially at a higher level, this is just incredible.
Oh, absolutely. A goldmine. You get access to authentic, challenging materials.
Things like full university lectures, published research papers, articles from places like The Economist or the New York Review of Books, podcasts on really specialized subjects.
Consuming that kind of material, it exposes you directly to sophisticated vocabulary, complex sentence structures, different ways of arguing and explaining things, the kind of language you need for academic or professional success.
It's English as it's actually used by experts in their fields. You just can't beat that for learning.
And then there's the power of search engines. Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, whatever you use.
Instant gratification for curiosity, right?
Pretty much. If you hit a tricky grammar point while reading, or you encounter some complex idea you don't quite get, bam, you can look it up immediately.
And within seconds, you've got access to maybe scholarly articles, expert blog posts, discussion forums where people are hashing it out.
It creates this amazing feedback loop. You have a question, you seek the answer, you find it, maybe that sparks another question.
It really encourages that self-directed learning approach. You become the driver of your own learning journey, following your interests.
Think about researching a complex topic, say, the ethics of gene editing. A quick search brings up maybe a scientific paper full of data alongside an opinion piece from a newspaper and perhaps a blog post from an ethicist.
And comparing those sources isn't just about gathering facts. It's practice and critical evaluation, isn't it?
Totally. You're forced to look at the different styles, think about who wrote it, what their potential angle might be.
Is this based on evidence, or is it more of an emotional appeal? What's the difference between, say, a peer-reviewed study and an editorial?
And honing those analytical skills is vital, not just for understanding the world, but for communicating effectively yourself, like building a strong evidence-based argument in an essay or presentation.
Okay, but there's a catch, right? The material definitely highlights a pretty major downside to all this easy access.
Ah, yes. The elephant in the digital room. Misinformation.
It's everywhere. Because the barriers to publishing are so low now, basically anyone can put anything online.
Which makes digital literacy absolutely essential. It's not just a nice-to-have skill anymore. It's fundamental.
It's not enough just to find information. You absolutely have to be able to figure out if it's trustworthy. Can you actually believe what you're reading or watching?
And that means developing some specific techniques, like really looking into the author. Who are they? Do they have expertise in this area?
Or checking the claims. Does this data match up with what other reliable sources are saying? Or does it seem way off?
And being aware of potential bias. Is the author or the website trying to push a particular agenda? Are they funded by someone with a vested interest?
These critical evaluation skills are not just about being a smart consumer of information either. They make you a better producer, too.
Definitely. If
Yes.
you're writing something yourself, say for work or study, you need to use credible sources and be able to justify why they're credible. It adds weight to your own arguments.
There's an example about academic writing. Say you're exploring the impact of social media. You find a shocking statistic on some random blog.
And a different, maybe more nuanced statistic in a published research study. Evaluating those requires careful language.
Right. You might say something like, while some online sources claim X, peer-reviewed research suggests Y, based on a larger sample size. That kind of phrasing shows critical engagement.
And it sharpens both your thinking and your ability to communicate precisely and persuasively.
The material also includes some case studies, like one about someone using an online platform, maybe Coursera, to study academic writing itself.
These platforms often provide a very structured learning path. You get video lectures, readings, quizzes.
And importantly, assignments that require you to actually produce written work, essays, reports, summaries.
This structure immerses you in the specific way people talk and write in that field, the vocabulary, the sentence patterns, the way arguments are built.
And doing the assignments forces you to practice using that specific kind of language. Plus, many platforms have discussion forums.
Right, where you interact with other learners, ask questions, debate ideas. That's practice in, more spontaneous communication, applying what you're learning.
So the technology enables it, but the real learning comes from that active engagement, grappling with material, writing, discussing. It boosts both your knowledge and your language skills, assuming you actually dive in.
Okay, so moving beyond just access, let's talk about how technology can provide tools that seem designed to, boost our cognitive processes directly, augmenting our thinking.
Like giving our brains a bit of a superpower.
Yeah.
Or at least a very efficient assistant.
Something like that. Examples include those productivity apps, Notion, Evernote, Trello, Asana.
There are loads.
Powerful organizers, basically.
Yeah, they help you wrangle huge amounts of information. You can manage daily to-do lists, plan out complex projects step by step, create detailed study schedules.
Outline research papers, categorize notes. For language learning, especially at an advanced level where you're juggling grammar, vocab, listening, speaking, they could be amazing. You could use them to, say, categorize new vocabulary by theme, link grammar exercises to specific rules, schedule spaced repetition reviews, or even outline arguments for a debate club practice.
It helps bring order to the chaos, streamlines the process.
And then there are tools specifically for language that act as cognitive enhancers. Think about sophisticated grammar checkers.
Like Grammarly or maybe Pro Writing Aid. They go way beyond basic spell check now.
Oh, definitely. They give real-time feedback on sentence structure, word choice, clarity, conciseness, even things like the tone of your writing.
And the key is it's not just about clicking accept suggestion. You have to engage with it, right?
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
You look at the suggestion and think, okay, why is it suggesting I change that? Oh, I see, using an active verb here makes it punchier. Or, this phrase is a bit redundant. How can I say it more directly?
That analytical process helps you internalize the patterns. You learn from the feedback, improving your writing beyond just that one document.
Then you've got learning apps that deliberately incorporate ideas from cognitive science, like Duolingo or Memrise, using spaced repetition for vocabulary.
Right. That's the idea that reviewing information at increasing intervals helps lodge it in long-term memory more effectively.
Exactly. It's based on how our memory actually seems to work. The app figures out when you're likely to forget a word and prompts you just before that happens. It's efficient.
This ties into something called cognitive load theory, doesn't it?
It does. The basic idea is that our working memory, the mental space where we actively process information, is limited. Learning happens best when we don't overload it.
So if a tool handles the mundane stuff like organizing notes or catching simple typos,
It reduces what's called extraneous cognitive load. That's the mental effort spent on things other than the actual learning task.
which frees up more of your precious brain power.
Precisely. More resources available for the difficult parts. Understanding complex concepts, analyzing texts, thinking creatively, figuring out tricky grammar.
And artificial intelligence takes this even further, potentially. AI tutors, for instance.
Yeah, the potential for personalization is huge. And AI could, in theory, adapt exercises to your specific weaknesses in real time.
Like if it notices you keep messing up, say, at the third conditional.
It could instantly generate a bunch of targeted practice exercises just on that specific structure, helping you master it faster because the practice is so focused.
There's even a neuroscientific angle mentioned, suggesting that interacting with these dynamic digital tools might stimulate brain pathways involved in learning and memory.
It's an emerging area, but the idea is that interactive, responsive environments might engage our brains differently, perhaps more effectively than just passively reading a textbook.
What about those brain training apps like Lumosity? There's always debate about those.
There is. The scientific consensus on whether they broadly improve intelligence is still out. But the material suggests they might at least encourage specific cognitive skills like focus, mental flexibility, or task switching.
And there's an interesting idea about combining them with language practice.
Right. Imagine doing a visual puzzle on one of these apps, but at the same time, you have to describe your strategy out loud in English.
Wow, that sounds hard. Forcing your brain to juggle visual processing, problem solving, and linguistic output simultaneously.
Exactly. It builds both cognitive agility and the ability to think on your feet linguistically. Good practice for real-world situations like fast-paced meetings or giving impromptu answers.
The case study using a grammar tool really drives this home. A learner uses something like Grammarly on an essay.
And instead of just accepting changes, they analyze them. Why is this passive sentence flagged? How can I make it active? Why is this word considered vague? What's a more precise alternative?
That active analysis helps them internalize more advanced vocabulary, sophisticated grammar, and clearer writing principles. It's cognitive augmentation in action.
Okay, beyond individual tools, technology has also revolutionized how we connect and collaborate across the globe. This is another huge boost for intellectual growth.
We're all pretty used to Zoom, Teams, Google Meet now, aren't we?
Totally. These platforms just erase distance. You can have a real-time conversation with someone on the other side of the planet,
Including native English speakers you might never meet otherwise.
which provides incredibly valuable practice in spontaneous, real conversation. It's one thing to practice dialogues from a book.
It's quite another to react to unexpected questions, express complex thoughts on the fly, navigate misunderstandings, all in real time. That's where real fluency develops.
And platforms like Tandem or HelloTalk are built specifically for that language exchange.
Connecting you with peers internationally, right, for practice.
Yeah, through text, audio, video, whatever works. And doing that exposes you to a huge variety of accents, slang, colloquialisms, cultural nuances in communication.
Things you just don't get from standard learning materials. It really refines your listening skills and your ability to adapt your own speaking.
Imagine discussing a complex topic like, say, global economic policy or cultural differences with someone from a completely different background. You're pushed to articulate sophisticated ideas and understand diverse perspectives.
Even social media platforms like X or Reddit can be places for intellectual exchange, despite their issues.
Definitely. There are countless online communities focused on specific academic subjects, professional fields, even hobbies that require complex discussion.
Participating in those forums means practicing written argumentation, responding thoughtfully to others, engaging in debate.
You learn to express yourself clearly, often adhering to the specific norms or standards of that particular community. It's practice in adapting your communication style.
Collaborative platforms also show this power. Things like GitHub, where developers work together on code.
Or Zooniverse, where ordinary people contribute to real scientific research by classifying images or transcribing data. Citizen science.
Engaging with those kinds of platforms builds specialized vocabulary, sometimes highly technical language. And participating forces you to describe complex things precisely.
And this whole idea of virtual communities fostering cultural exchange comes up again. You're constantly encountering English as a global language, used in countless different ways by people from diverse backgrounds.
That prepares you so well for the reality of using English in international settings. And it builds intercultural competence, which is a really valuable skill.
The language exchange case study makes this point strongly. Regular chats with a native speaker don't just polish your grammar, they teach you natural expressions, conversational flow, rhythm, intonation.
It boosts your confidence and your practical ability to actually use the language in real situations.
And finally, technology is profoundly reshaping learning itself, strongly backing the idea of lifelong learning, which is becoming essential, right? The world changes so fast.
Absolutely. You can't just stop learning after school anymore.
And technology provides amazing resources for this. Think about online certifications or professional development courses.
Platforms like LinkedIn Learning, Coursera again, Google's career certificates.
These let you learn entirely new job skills. Digital marketing, data analysis, project management, you name it, often while improving your English at the same time.
Because the courses are often in English, using the specific terminology of that field.
Exactly. You're learning the skill and learning how to talk and write about it professionally in English. You pick up industry jargon, practice writing reports or emails in that context.
Just learning to navigate all these different platforms and software interfaces, that itself builds a kind of mental flexibility, doesn't it?
It does. It's like constantly adapting to new tools, which mirrors the real world where you always have to adjust your approach, your communication for different situations or audiences.
Technology also makes interdisciplinary learning much easier. You could be studying, say, artificial intelligence using English resources, broadening both your tech knowledge and your advanced English vocabulary simultaneously.
And the material mentions micro-credentials too. Shorter, really focused online courses.
Like getting a specific certificate in maybe social media advertising?
Yeah, something very targeted. It teaches you the practical skills and the specific language, the buzzwords, the concepts used in that niche.
The case study about an online course on presentation skills is a great example. You learn how to structure a talk, use persuasive language, handle visuals, engage an audience.
All through online modules and maybe practice sessions. It directly improves high-value communication skills and confidence, showing how tech supports very practical, ongoing learning.
Okay, wow. So we've built a pretty strong case for technology as this incredible engine for learning and intellectual growth. The access, the tools, the connections, the lifelong learning support, it's really compelling.
It absolutely is. The potential is enormous.
And it's a big but. The material is very clear that there's another side to the coin. The very things that make technology so convenient and powerful
Can also potentially lead to a kind of intellectual laziness, mental complacency.
This is where that term cognitive offloading comes in, right?
Yes, that's presented as a central mechanism for how technology might inadvertently make us, well, lazier thinkers.
So it's about how we use it, not just that we use it.
That's the key idea. It's about relying too much on external tools for tasks our brains could do and perhaps should do for exercise.
Like reaching for the calculator for simple sums you used to do in your head.
Or relying totally on spell check without ever thinking about the spelling rules yourself. Or using GPS for every single journey without trying to build a mental map.
And the argument is, if you constantly outsource that mental effort, the underlying skill doesn't get practiced and potentially weakens.
Precisely. Mental muscles need exercise, just like physical ones. If you never do mental arithmetic, you get rusty. If you don't consciously engage with spelling or navigation, those abilities might fade.
And for language learners, the risk is over-relying on things like translation apps or AI writing assistants.
Yes. These tools can be fantastic aids, don't get me wrong. But if you use them to completely bypass the struggle of figuring out grammar or memorizing vocabulary yourself,
You miss the actual learning part. You get the answer instantly, but you skip the valuable mental process of working it out.
the material brings in the dual process theory from cognitive science here, often linked with Daniel Kahneman.
System 1 and System 2 thinking.
That's the one. System 1 is fast, intuitive, automatic, recognizing faces, understanding simple sentences. System 2 is slow, effortful, analytical, solving complex problems, writing essays, deep analysis.
And the worry is that text convenience pushes us toward relying too much on the easy, automatic System 1.
And neglecting the harder but crucial System 2 thinking that's necessary for deep learning and critical thought. Quick answers feel good, but they don't always build deep understanding.
This connects to the impact of all the bite-sized content too, right? Short videos, social media feeds.
Yes, the constant stream of easily digestible, rapidly changing information. Our brains get used to that quick hit novelty.
Which can make it genuinely harder to focus on things that require sustained attention.
Absolutely. Things like reading a long, dense academic article, working through a complex novel, or even following a detailed argument in a lecture. Our focus muscles get weak.
There's research mentioned on deep reading, that immersive focused reading, where you really analyze and connect with the text.
And the suggestion is that our common online habit of skimming, scanning, jumping around might actually be eroding our ability to do that kind of deep reading.
Which is a major concern if your goal involves understanding complex ideas, literature, or even just subtle nuances in advanced language use.
And the subtopic on memory links back to cognitive offloading too. If we know we can instantly look up anything, do we bother remembering it?
Relying on digital notes, reminders, search engines, it might mean our own working memory doesn't get the workout it needs.
That's the potential risk. The act of actively retrieving information from your own memory strengthens that memory. If you always relied on an external device, that strengthening process doesn't happen as much.
So you might struggle more to recall vocabulary or grammar rules when you don't have the tool, like in an exam or a spontaneous chat.
Which is why strategies like using traditional flashcards sometimes, or deliberately practicing recall without looking at your notes, can still be really valuable.
The case study on overusing translation apps illustrates this perfectly. You face a tricky sentence in English, you plug it into a translator, get the gist quickly.
But you bypass the valuable work of analyzing the structure, guessing word meanings from context, looking up individual words to understand their full meaning.
It gives you a fast answer, but it doesn't build your independent reading comprehension skills nearly as effectively. It highlights that need for balance use tools, but don't let them replace the core effort.
Okay, so beyond just making us maybe passively consume information, could technology also be undermining our ability to solve problems independently?
Like, if AI can write the essay for you or draft the email.
You might skip the crucial thinking steps involved. Structuring the argument, synthesizing information yourself, finding your own unique angle or solution.
And relying on templates for everything, presentations, reports, even creative work could lead to less originality.
It could. If everyone uses the same framework, things start to look the same.
Yeah.
And it might leave you less prepared when you face a problem that needs a completely fresh, custom approach.
There's also a point about automation in the workplace. If machines handle all the routine problem solving,
do humans get fewer chances to build those skills themselves? Skills like resilience, creative thinking, adaptability that come from tackling challenges. It could limit practice in harder to automate areas like negotiation or strategic analysis.
And this ease of finding answers online fosters that copy-paste mentality sometimes.
That's a real concern. It's so easy to find something and just reproduce it, which challenges intellectual honesty and the development of genuine understanding and original thought.
The subtopic on creativity directly addresses this. If we lean too heavily on AI for content generation,
Does it stifle our own creative spark? Especially if you're trying to develop your own voice, your own style, say, in writing. Simply using AI output isn't really your creation.
the suggestion is maybe use AI for brainstorming, getting ideas flowing.
But then do the actual crafting yourself. Inject your own personality, your perspective, your unique way of saying things.
The AI-generated essay case study makes this point well. The output might be flawless grammatically,
But it often lacks that spark, that personal insight, that unexpected connection that makes writing truly compelling and original. Using AI as a starting point, maybe for an outline, but then writing it yourself leads to a far better, more intellectually engaging result. Then we move into the social and emotional side effects. The idea that spending so much time interacting via screens might reduce face-to-face time.
which has obvious implications for practicing spoken language, right?
Huge implications. Less real-world conversation means less practice with fluency, pronunciation, intonation, reading body language.
And those subtle conversational skills like turn-taking, interrupting politely, understanding tone of voice.
Things that are really hard to learn from a screen alone. And some research suggests that primarily text-based communication might even chip away at empathy, because you miss all those nonverbal cues.
Empathy being so important for understanding different viewpoints and having nuanced conversations,
And then there's the issue of social media algorithms creating echo chambers.
where you mostly see stuff that confirms what you already believe.
Exactly. It connects you with like-minded people and filters out opposing views, which feels comfortable, but
It limits your exposure to diverse perspectives. It makes it harder to grapple with complex issues where there isn't one easy answer. It can kind of stunt your intellectual growth by keeping you in a bubble.
And psychologically, the constant notifications, likes, shares, they create this dopamine feedback loop.
Giving you little bursts of pleasure, making you want to keep checking.
Yes. And that prioritizes instant gratification over the sustained, sometimes difficult effort needed to truly master something complex, like a language.
The subtopic on emotional intelligence connects back to empathy. Fewer rich face-to-face interactions might mean fewer opportunities to develop this crucial skill.
Whereas actively practicing empathy in real conversations builds communication competence. That's why complementing online learning with offline things like study groups or real-world meetups can be so valuable. It fosters emotional connection too.
The echo chamber case study is revealing. If you only follow sources that agree with you, you miss out on encountering new ideas, new vocabulary, and new ways of arguing.
Deliberately seeking out different viewpoints, even ones you disagree with, forces you to think more critically and practice articulating more balanced, nuanced arguments.
And finally, perhaps the most common complaint, digital distraction and fragmented attention.
Oh, the constant battle. Notifications popping up, the urge to quickly check email or social media, juggling multiple tabs and apps.
It makes sustained focus incredibly difficult.
And research confirms it. These interruptions increase cognitive load. Every time you switch tasks, your brain has to reorient, which takes effort and time. It reduces efficiency.
And it makes it hard to stay coherent when you're doing something complex, like writing a detailed analysis or even just following a long conversation.
Plus, the very design of many platforms is addictive, engineered to keep you clicking, which can easily lead to procrastination.
You sit down to study, and suddenly an hour has vanished down a rabbit hole of cat videos or news headlines.
It undermines the discipline needed for deep work. The subtopic on attention span notes this widespread concern and stresses that focus is a skill we now need to actively train.
Techniques like the Pomodoro method-focused work, bursts, then breaks, or creating tech-free study zones.
Exactly. Conscious strategies to fight back against distraction and build concentration, which is vital for things like exams or timed writing tasks.
The notification overload case study shows this clearly. Someone struggling with a timed task because their phone keeps buzzing.
Simply turning off notifications and maybe using a focus app makes a dramatic difference. Better concentration, better quality work in the allotted time.
Okay, so we've really dug into both sides now. The incredible potential of technology to boost our intellect and the very real risks of it encouraging mental laziness or fragmentation. It truly seems like a double-edged sword.
It really does. It's not a simple good or bad situation. It's all about the balance, the interaction between the user and the tool.
Which puts the focus squarely on us, the users. It's about being intentional, strategic in how we engage with technology.
Absolutely. It's about actively choosing to use these powerful tools to our advantage while consciously guarding against the potential downsides.
So revisiting those positive examples, vocabulary apps, online courses, their real value depends on how you use them. Are you actively engaging or just passively consuming?
And it means deliberately seeking out high-quality, challenging material online, not just the easy stuff, engaging with it critically.
And crucially, making sure you still do the work yourself sometimes. Independent practice.
Yes. Writing without leaning too heavily on AI, having conversations without scripts, trying to solve problems with your own brain first before reaching for a digital shortcut, maintaining that independent effort.
Educators play a big role here too, designing tasks that require critical thinking with technology, not just using it passively.
Like analyzing online sources for bias, collaborating on complex virtual projects, using tools creatively.
And maybe even encouraging reflection. Just thinking about your own tech use, how did it help or hinder you today, can build awareness.
The idea of blended learning really captures this balance, combining the best of both worlds.
Using digital tools for their strengths, maybe efficient drills, access to lectures.
But combining them with offline methods, face-to-face discussion, problem solving, with pen and paper, real-world practice, it creates a more robust, holistic approach.
The blended learning case study showed that perfectly apt for drills plus conversation group led to gains in both specific skills and overall fluency.
Looking bigger picture, at work and society, technology reshapes things constantly. Automation might free us up for creativity.
But we need to make sure core skills don't atrophy. And mastering digital communication emails, virtual meetings, collaboration platforms is just essential now for most jobs.
And we can't forget the digital divide. Unequal access is still a major barrier to opportunity for many people worldwide.
Understanding that issue, being able to talk about it, advocating for digital equity, that's part of being an informed citizen too.
The workplace communication subtopic highlights adapting your style, formal emails versus quick chats. And the virtual presentation case study shows how tech itself can be used to practice and refine those vital professional skills.
So a lot of it comes down to mindful technology use, being conscious, being intentional.
Setting boundaries, turning off those notifications when you need to focus, scheduling tech time instead of letting it constantly interrupt, maybe limiting recreational screen time.
It's about taking control rather than letting the tech control you.
And deliberately engaging with challenging online content. Reading long articles, tackling complex digital texts, building mental resilience against that pull of easy gratification.
And underpinning all of this is digital literacy, not just knowing how to click buttons.
But understanding algorithms, critically evaluating sources, spotting misinformation, understanding bias, these skills are paramount.
Because they translate directly into core intellectual skills like analysis, synthesis, argumentation. Being able to weigh evidence from different sources is fundamental.
The digital literacy subtopic emphasizes this, evaluating content, comparing sources. The case study showed how systematically doing that improves analytical writing.
And briefly, there are psychological aspects too. Information overload leading to decision fatigue.
Yeah, choosing which tool or resource to use can be overwhelming. Having clear goals helps manage that.
And culturally, tech exposes us to global English and diverse cultures, which is great.
But we also need to actively seek diversity to avoid those filter bubbles and homogenization.
Psychological resilience comes into using techniques like mindfulness to manage digital overload, stay focused.
The mindfulness case study showed how breaks for focus helped with concentration and stress on demanding tasks.
So wrapping this all up, the big picture seems clear. The question, smarter or lazier, doesn't have a simple answer. It's complicated.
It really is. Technology offers incredible empowerment, but it also presents genuine risks. It's a dynamic interplay.
We've seen how it can massively enhance intellect. That amazing access to knowledge, tools that augment cognition, global collaboration, support for lifelong learning.
But we've also seen the potential downsides. Cognitive offloading, maybe weaker problem-solving skills, social impacts, constant distraction.
So the real takeaway, the crucial point for you listening, seems to be that the outcome isn't automatic. It depends entirely on how you choose to use the technology.
It's about consciously deciding to use these tools to expand your mind, sharpen your skills, engage deeply with ideas, connect meaningfully.
While at the same time, actively protecting and nurturing your own independent thinking, your critical faculties, your ability to focus.
Developing mindful habits, using balanced approaches, building strong digital literacy. These are the keys to making sure technology serves your growth.
Rather than letting it lead you down a path of comfortable mental stagnation.
And that final thought is really powerful. The choice is ultimately yours. Every day, with every interaction. Will you wield technology intentionally to learn and understand more deeply?
Or will you let its conveniences lull you into complacency? It's a constant negotiation, isn't it? But navigating it thoughtfully is how you get smarter, learn better, and communicate more effectively in this connected world.
Thinking critically about your own technology use is such a vital part of that learning journey. If you found this exploration interesting and want to dive deeper into more topics with us, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.